Chapter 1109. The Sea of Tribulation hung in the sky as if it was the end of the world. Thousands of wind, lightning and fire tribulations wreaked havoc between heaven and earth with overwhelming killing intent. There were also ancient cries of hatred towards the gods coming from the heavenly tribulations. It was the wrath of heaven that could only be heard by those who could communicate with nature. Kill the gods. Kill the gods. The golden-armored giant walked calmly between heaven and earth with an aura that could devour mountains and rivers. Every step he took would crush the heavenly tribulations. Every time he punched, the sea of tribulation would calm down. The heavenly tribulations would strike his body at every moment. However, they could not hurt him at all. They could only send out rays of golden light. It was enough to show how terrifying the physical defense of this giant was. The eyes of the golden-armored giant were filled with anger that could not be vented. He was none other than Ning Fan's eternal true body that he had obtained after consuming the divine liquid of the god-destroying shield. Before this, Ning Fan had no idea about his eternal true body at all. He did not know which type of Tao law he should use as the dominant one, and what kind of true body he should condense. But now he no longer needed to feel lost. The god-destroying shield had given him a choice. After consuming the divine liquid of the god-destroying shield, the divine blood in his body boiled. All the Tao laws he cultivated suddenly seemed to have a backbone, and became unified. After all, the cultivation base of the ancient gods, ancient demons and ancient devils were all imitations of the gods. The three elements of yin and yang that they cultivated had an innate desire to submit to the existence of the gods. Now, under the influence of the divine liquid of the god-destroying shield, they actually compromised and reached a consensus. This consensus was that if Ning Fan forms his eternal true body, it would definitely be a humanoid true body. Moreover, the appearance of his true body was extremely similar to the god-destroying giant, due to the influence of the god-destroying shield. Other than his appearance, his 100 jong tall body, golden flame armor, and the shield in his left hand were almost the same as the god-destroying giant in the past. They were all inherited by Ning Fan's eternal true body. The golden armor divine liquid in Ning Fan's body was still being refined. Because of that, the rejection of heaven and earth towards him became stronger and stronger. Golden flames burned on his true body. In fact, those golden flames were not entirely the flames on his true body armor. Most of them were the flames produced by the terrifying temperature of the divine liquid, burning his blood and body. After all, this was the golden-armored divine liquid. Its temperature was countless times more terrifying compared to the silver-armored and copper-armored divine liquids. The temperature was sufficient to directly incinerate initial-stage immortal emperors. If other immortal venerables were to consume the divine liquid of the god-exterminating shield recklessly, most of them would be directly burned into ashes. However, Ning Fan was different. He could feel the existence of a will within the divine liquid. It was the will of the god-exterminating shield before its death. It was helping its master absorb the power of the divine liquid, and suppress the overly terrifying temperature of the golden armor divine liquid. That was why he could calmly refine the divine liquid. Even though his body was burning, he did not feel too much pain. Everything was voluntary and arranged by the god-exterminating shield. Ning Fan did not know why the god-exterminating shield would use his own life to persuade him to embark on the path of becoming a god. He could imagine that the god-exterminating shield must have some kind of difficulties, but he did not know what those difficulties were. As time passed, the number of heavenly tribulations in the sky gradually decreased. All of them were destroyed by Ning Fan. On the other hand, the golden flames on Ning Fan's body grew stronger and stronger. His aura force became more and more intimidating. His form gradually solidified. His body was covered in divine light, giving people a feeling that it was indestructible. When he finished refining all of the divine liquid, Ning Fan's eternal true body could be considered to have been completely formed. In the sky, which had been ravaged by nearly 10,000 heavenly tribulations, Ning Fan's true body, which was 100 jong tall, stood in the air. His left hand was holding a huge golden flame shield which was formed from magic power. His body was covered in golden flame's armor, making him look as mighty as an ancient divine being who had returned to the world. As soon as the heavenly tribulations were gone, the world became peaceful again. However, Ningfan's heart was still filled with a hint of silence. He used his spirit sense to scan through his gigantic body, and every part of his true body that was similar to the god-exterminating giant. His expression was complicated. This is my eternal true body. You and I have been master and servant for many years, but I know very little about you. Until today, I only know that you are the sixth fragment of the god-exterminating shield of the ancient country. I have never even given you a name, not as a shield, but as a servant and a friend. I owe you a name. Boom! Ningfan's true body landed on the ground of the Time Tower. A tremendous force spread out from his body, crushing mountains and rivers one after another. It was the proof that he had yet to fully control the power of his eternal true body. After all, he had just cultivated it. He still needed a long time to get used to it. For the next few days, Ningfan did not have the mood to cultivate. He removed his eternal true body and casually sat on the ground. There were 2 jars of wine on the ground. One of them was for him to drink. Even though the seal on the other jar was opened, no one was drinking it. When the wind blew, the wine in the jar rippled. Could this great deity be crazy? Is he paying tribute to the fragment of the heaven-opening treasure? I don't understand. I can't understand it. It's just a magic treasure. So what if it's lost? Why can't he let it go? There has never been a divine being who would be puzzled by an unexpected item. The furnace's mission was to refine magic treasures for the divine beings of the royal families of ancient countries. Even though his memories were incomplete due to the loss of his memories, he could still vaguely remember that he had once refined a heaven-opening treasure for some fourth-step divine beings in the ancient era to temper their bodies. However, there had never been a divine being who would feel sad for an external object, not even a complete heaven-opening treasure. Ningfan seemed to be the first divine being that he had met that was somewhat special. At this moment, Ningfan did not activate his all-living things communication ability. Naturally, he could not hear the furnace's thoughts. Even if he could hear it, he would not have the mood to care about it. He was not a person who liked to wallow in sorrow. Even though his heart was heavy, he still remembered his original intention of entering the Time Tower. The complicated feelings he had after losing the god-exterminating shield gradually calmed down. He was here to cultivate. There was still a formidable enemy waiting for him to challenge. He did not have the time to be sad. Old friend, you won't mind if I call you Lord Sixth, right? After all, you are the 6th fragment of the god-exterminating shield, and you are ranked 6th. This title is the most appropriate one among all the titles that I have thought of. Other than the first time, I have also thought of titles such as Lord Shield, Lord Extermination, and Lord God. However, I feel that these titles lack a sense of intimacy. Ningfan remained silent for a few days before he finally thought of a title for the deceased god-exterminating shield. However, when he thought of the title that he had painstakingly come up with but he could no longer hear it, he could not help but sigh even more deeply. My new master doesn't seem to be good at giving names. The furnace was speechless. Of course, Ningfan also did not hear what the furnace had said. Old friend, have a safe journey. A few days later, Ningfan finally put down his empty wine jar and poured the wine that he had prepared for the god-exterminating shield on the ground as a sacrifice. Then he let out a long sigh and changed his mood. In the following 10 years, he was only busy with one thing, and that was to comprehend the new eternal true body that he had just cultivated and adapt to the increase in his strength. Currently, the cultivation base of the 4 elements in his body had all reached the eternal immortal venerable realm. He had truly achieved a balance. If one were to look at it from the perspective of yin and yang, the cultivation base of the 3 elements in the yin side had suppressed the cultivation base of the yang side for the first time. The total amount of magic power in his body was already comparable to that of a 4th tribulation immortal king without using any additional techniques, who asked him to cultivate 4 elements at the same time. Even though the difficulty was high, the benefits were also great. If he activates the eternal true body, his cultivation base would skyrocket, and he would be able to display the strength of a 5th tribulation immortal king. The most terrifying thing was the increase in his defense. The basic defense of his physical body did not increase by much. Of course, there was still a slight increase, but it was not what the furnace was focusing on. What the furnace was focusing on was the cultivation of the protective golden light. Currently, Ning Fan could activate the protective golden light in his body at any time, greatly increasing the defense of his physical body. It was exactly the same as when he had the God exterminating shield in the past. The only difference was that the protective golden light now belonged to Ning Fan himself. If he continues to cultivate this protective golden light, it would become the heavenly divine armor. However, that was still too far away. Without activating the eternal true body and just using the protective golden light, Ning Fan was confident that he could withstand all the attacks of a sixth tribulation immortal emperor, including the self-destruction of a sixth tribulation immortal emperor. If he activates the eternal true body and maximizes the power of the protective golden light, the defense of his true body would be like a replica of the God exterminating giant, which could defend against most of the attacks of a ninth tribulation immortal emperor. I kind of understand the difference between the divine smelting cauldron and the incinerating divine cauldron now. The divine smelting cauldron's defense focuses on the various aspects of the body. It's an increase in basic attributes. As for the divine smelting cauldron, it increases the defense of my physical body. It's similar to a divine ability which manifests itself in the form of the protective golden light and the golden flame giant. I need to activate it on my own accord. Even if it increases my physical body a little, it's just a side effect and not the main effect. The eternal true body is a type of transformation technique. Once it's activated, it can greatly increase a cultivator's cultivation base and increase their combat strength. In the cultivation world, there are a few eternal true bodies that possess special abilities. My eternal true body seems to have one as well. It's actually a special existence among the eternal true bodies. Ning Fan activated the eternal true body, and his body grew to 100 zhang. With a thought, a flame rune appeared on the center of his palm and burned fiercely. The structure of the rune was similar to the word hui. However, the frame of the word hui was made up of countless tiny ancient characters. The golden flames on the rune were burning fiercely. It was so dazzling that one could not look at it directly. It was like a miniature golden sun. The golden flames on the rune did not have any scorching temperature. It could not even burn the plants and trees in the mortal world. However, this rune gave Ning Fan an extraordinary feeling. He did not know why it could actually resonate with the slaughter and punishment power of the barbarian god in his body. This talisman could only be used when Ning Fan released his eternal true body. Therefore, he needed to activate the eternal true body as a prerequisite. This rune was formed by burning the divine power in Ning Fan's body. Creating this kind of rune consumed a lot of his divine power. Therefore, he could not use it frequently. There were more than 1,000 ancient characters that formed this rune. Even with Ning Fan's experience, he could not recognize what kind of ancient characters it was, let alone the ability to see through the rune. Thus, he decided to have a chat with this golden flame rune to get some information out of it. You are the ability that comes with my eternal true body. Tell me, what is your function? Ning Fan asked. God exterminating, God exterminating. The rune did not have a high level of thinking. It only knew how to reply with simple and inflexible words. In this aspect, it was far inferior to the incinerator. What does God exterminating mean? Punishment, punishment. The rune answered. What does punishment mean? God exterminating, God exterminating. Alright, it's back to the topic. Ning Fan repeatedly asked the rune dozens of questions. The rune either answered punishment or God exterminating. There was no third word. While Ning Fan was speechless, his expression became slightly solemn. When he became the 10th barbarian god, he had cultivated the slaughter and punishment power. It was an ability that specialized in punishing barbarian cultivators. It could disregard the cultivation level of the barbarian cultivators and punish them. It was incomparably heaven-defying. Since this rune mentioned the word punishment, could it be that there was a power similar to the slaughter and punishment power in this rune? If that's the case, it would explain why this rune could resonate with his slaughter and punishment power. Ning Fan followed the resonance of the punishment power of slaughter in his body to sense the rune. Gradually, he really sensed the existence of the punishment power from the rune. It was similar to the god of berserkers' power of punishment, But there was a fundamental difference. It was as if it was much stronger than the god of berserkers' power of punishment. The barbarian race was a race that imitated the divine spirits, and the barbarian god's slaughter and punishment power actually had traces of imitating the punishment power in the rune, god-slaying. Ancient kingdom god-slaying. If the effect of this rune was indeed to punish, could it be that it was specially created to deal with the ancient gods? Able to punish ancient gods? It was not accurate to call it the power of punishment. It was more like the power of divine extermination. Ning Fan had a guess and decided to test it out. He took out the purple divine power that had been forced out of his body and tried to use the golden flame rune to erase the purple divine power. One should know that even though there was only a trace of this purple divine power, it was extremely difficult to deal with. Ning Fan had used many methods, but none of them could truly erase this divine power from the world. Who would have thought that the moment the golden flame runes touched the purple divine power, the purple divine power would immediately evaporate? It was as if it had met with heaven and earth and was annihilated. The process was indescribably easy and strange. As expected, this rune has the ability to restrain divine power. My guess is probably right. This is a type of rune that possesses the power of divine extermination. My eternal true body actually has the special ability to restrain the ancient gods? But why did this happen? Could it be the god-slaying shield of the ancient country? That's right. It must be him. His name has the word god-slaying in it. Those two words are not just pleasing to the ears but also, it does have a special meaning. Perhaps the god-slaying shield was originally a punishment tool of the ancient country. After he devoured the shield, a trace of the power of divine extermination was produced in his eternal true body. Without this god-slaying rune, I can only fight evenly with Black Rope at most, even though my strength has increased tremendously. However, if I use this god-slaying rune, I might have a chance to defeat Black Rope despite the difference in our cultivation bases. This was not wishful thinking. He had already experienced how heaven-defying punishment methods were. That day on the wooden island, the clone of the southern clan's quasi-saint was extremely powerful. However, it was killed by him with a single palm of the 36 mountains. How heaven-defying was it to kill a quasi-saint's clone with a single palm? Even a second-level quasi-saint like Daoist Musang could not do it. However, Ning Fan did it. It had nothing to do with his cultivation base. Instead, it was because the punishment power of the barbarian god was too powerful. It had a terrifying number of 36 mountains. It was enough to punish someone across a huge gap in their cultivation base. Otherwise, how could he be called the barbarian god? Judging from the level of power, the god-slaying rune was one level higher than the punishment power of the barbarian race. Unfortunately, the god-slaying rune that Ning Fan obtained from devouring the god-slaying shield was not much. It was far from the size of the 36 punishment mountains that he possessed as the barbarian god. Even if this level of god-slaying rune really had the ability to restrain ancient gods, it would probably have a limited effect. Among the ancient gods of the same level, its punishment power would probably not be that high. Of course, if the ancient gods of the opposing ancient gods were weaker than him, and were just at the demigod realm, it might be easier for him to punish them. However, there were 2 points that Ning Fan was just guessing. He had not confirmed it yet. Is Black Rope a demigod? Can his god-slaying rune punish a demigod with a royal bloodline? With these 2 uncertainties, Ning Fan could not guarantee that he could easily defeat Black Rope with the god-slaying rune. If he guessed wrongly, he could only fight Black Rope to a standstill with his newly enhanced strength. It would be a fluke if he could end up in a draw. Black Rope was not a monster that he could defeat openly. At least, the current him did not have the strength to defeat Black Rope head-on. I shouldn't place all my hopes on the god-slaying rune. I should increase my chances of winning in other aspects. After devouring the god-slaying shield's divine liquid, I didn't get all the benefits. There are also some disadvantages. Currently, while the golden light protecting my body was greatly enhanced, the repulsive force of heaven and earth was also unprecedentedly huge. No, it is not accurate to say that it's repulsive force. The current me is basically regarded as the greatest enemy of heaven and earth. I've experienced this kind of hostility before in the Rain World. At that time, I had also disobeyed the heavenly Tao. However, this time it is obviously countless times more serious. Even the power of heaven and earth has been sealed. It's because the taboo I've committed this time is countless times more serious than when I captured the heavenly Tao puppet. The divine spirit Tao is something that heaven and earth rejects. However, the divine spirit Tao seems to be very close to my Tao persistence. The heavenly destruction persistence. The heavenly destruction persistence. This persistence is to cultivate the path of Tao, and not the circle of Tao. Is it another way of saying the divine spirit Tao? Those who cultivate the circle of Tao are immortals, while those who cultivate the path of Tao are gods. The opposition between Buddha and ancient devils. The opposition between tribulation spirits and barbarian spirits. Fundamentally speaking, is it the opposition between immortals and gods? Ningfan seemed to have understood many great secrets of heaven and earth in an instant. However, after understanding them, he felt a little bored. What does that great secret of heaven and earth have to do with me now? It's more important to comprehend the eternal true body. After refining the divine liquid of the God-destroying shield, the difficulty for Ningfan to extract the power of heaven and earth was more than 10 times higher than before. This meant that if Ningfan uses his previous abilities and magic treasures, he would need to consume more than 10 times more magic power in order to achieve the same level of power as before. During a battle, a huge amount of magic power would be wasted. This was something that Ningfan could only achieve after comprehending the law of heaven and earth. If he does not comprehend the law of heaven and earth, the Dharma-ending world would completely forbid him from extracting any power of heaven and earth due to his crime of stubbornly cultivating the divine spirit Tao. That would be really troublesome. Considering that his magic power would be endless after activating the cross-shaped halo, Ningfan was not too worried about the increase in the consumption of his magic power. However, he was more or less displeased. He disliked the fact that he was punished by others. Heaven wants to take away my immortal lifespan, and even gave me the right to extract the power of heaven and earth. Sure enough, once I truly step on the divine spirit Tao, there's no turning back. Since there's no turning back, there's no need for me to turn back. I still have more magic treasures in my hands. Even though I can't refine the golden armor divine liquid like the God-destroying shield, I can still refine the silver armor divine liquid, and the copper armor divine liquid. I can also use the incinerating cauldron to become stronger. Let's see if my immortal lifespan will be taken away, and I'll be killed first, or if the restriction of this world will be surpassed by me using the divine spirit Tao. Ningfan spent another few thousand years to completely stabilize his eternal true body. Then he entered the third 10,000 years time tower, and began to refine the other magic treasures, and consumed the divine liquid to cultivate. He was not a person who cherished magic treasures. He had never been one. The God-destroying shield was one of the special ones. The other magic treasures rarely made him feel sad, cherished or reluctant to part with them. Even when he refined them, he did not care about them. As a result, most of the magic treasures in his storage pouch that he rarely used were incinerated by Ningfan, except for those that had special meanings. The first step magic treasures were exchanged for a large amount of copper armor divine liquid. The second step magic treasures were exchanged for a large amount of silver armor divine liquid. As for postnatal immortal treasures, Ningfan did not care about them. Even if it was low-grade innate magic treasures, he would not feel bad about it. Since the lightning prison rope that was destroyed by the black rope was already useless, he could use it to refine a pool of silver liquid. The 5 Venom Banner, the Immortal Washing Duel, the Black Mountain Bear Ancestral Kasaya, the 5 Lightning Annihilation Shield, the Divine Lightning Mirror, the Jialuo Emperor's Devil Subduing Bead, the Ancient Imperial Sword, the World Suppressing Mount Tai. All kinds of dispensable innate magic treasures were incinerated by Ningfan, and turned into silver armor divine liquid which he refined into his body. The higher the grade of the second step magic treasures, the more silver liquid they would produce. Even though the quality of refining one's body with a large amount of innate magic treasures was not as high as the quality of the heaven-opening treasure, it won in quantity. The benefits it could bring were not to be underestimated. Other than low-grade innate magic treasures, or mid-grade innate magic treasures which had special functions, Ningfan did not plan to keep any extra innate magic treasures. During the process of refining the innate magic treasures, the golden light protecting his body became brighter and brighter. His eternal true body also became stronger. It was even stronger than the god-destroying giant in the past. The third 10,000 years finally passed. During the process of refining a large amount of magic treasures, Ning Fan lost another 8 million years of his immortal lifespan. This was the price he had to pay for devouring more than 100,000 low-grade magic treasures, hundreds of acquired immortal treasures, and a few innate magic treasures. During this period of time, he had lost a total of 17 million years of his immortal lifespan. Even though he, Gu Ling, was only 170,000 years old, the heavenly tribulation he would face in the future would already be as powerful as what a 17 million years old cultivator would have to face. Among the cultivators who were 17 million years old, the weaker ones were just immortal venerables while the stronger ones were already immortal kings. Of course, this level of heavenly tribulation was still not enough to make Ning Fan fearful. However, if his immortal lifespan continues to be reduced, there would come a day when he would have to face a terrifying heavenly tribulation. Ning Fan was already mentally prepared for this. Since he had already embarked on the path of becoming a god, he would no longer hesitate. Even though the risk of cultivating the divine spirit path was great, the benefits were also very obvious. Once he made up his mind to cultivate the divine spirit path, he became even more ambitious. He wanted to collect all 4 great divine tools. He already had the head inverse grade incinerator and the 9 inverse grade divine refining cauldron. However, he was still lacking the blood and chi gourd and the millstone of spirit sense. In the future, he would have to be more careful. If he could find these 2 great divine tools, Ning Fan was confident that his strength would skyrocket once again. After 30,000 years, Ning Fan packed his belongings and repaired the immemorial lightning cauldron. When he walked out of the profound Yin world again, he was much stronger than before. With just a punch, he sent Black Rope, who was rushing into the profound Yin world, flying. Even though he did not manage to severely injure Black Rope with that punch, it also showed that the current Ning Fan was much stronger than before he entered the profound Yin world. In the past, he could not send Black Rope flying with such ease. Even though the current him was still not as strong as Black Rope, the gap between them had shrunk significantly. After that, Ning Fan transformed into his eternal true body and knocked Black Rope unconscious with just a punch. Of course, he had relied on the sneak attack of the divine destruction power. However, it was extremely difficult to kill him. Black Rope's chi and blood were just too heaven-defying. Ning Fan could only blame the fact that he did not have enough divine destruction power. Even if Black Rope was just a demigod, it would be difficult for him to deal significant damage to Black Rope due to the difference in their levels. The reason why he was able to knock Black Rope unconscious was because he quickly attacked his opponent's Sea of Consciousness with the divine destruction power when Black Rope was unprepared. If it wasn't for the fact that it happened all of a sudden, if Ning Fan didn't attack when Black Rope was unprepared, if he gave Black Rope enough time to notice his divine destruction power, Ning Fan was not confident that he could successfully ambush Black Rope with his divine destruction power and defeat him with a single punch. It was a battle where he had an unfair advantage. However, there was no fairness in this battle. So what if he had an unfair advantage? So what if he was arrogant and presumptuous? The Dark Race. After that, he completely fell out with the Dark Race. After that, he fled all the way to the lower layer of the Dark Race's sky. Ning Fan's eyes were calm as if the battle cries behind him did not exist. He activated his eternal true body and went on a rampage in the Dark Race. Anyone who dared to block his way would be killed by his eternal true body. He was domineering, unreasonable, and merciless. At this moment, he had already fallen out with the Dark Race. There was no need for him to be reasonable anymore. He could spare those ordinary cultivators of the Dark Race who did not care about worldly affairs. However, he would not show any mercy to those who dared to block his way or attack him. Previously, the battlefield was just the Dark Continent and not the Great Dark Heaven. But now the situation had changed. Thief, don't you dare run! A quasi-sage realm demigod rode on a black gourd and dashed towards Ning Fan. Ning Fan did not know who this person was. He was also a first-level demigod. Judging from where he was standing just now, His status should be higher than the quasi-sage in Tiendo. His cultivation base was also slightly stronger than in Tiendo's. That gourd quasi-saint was much faster than Ningfan. It was the fastest among the 5 quasi-saints of the dark race. It was because the gourd he was riding on was an innate magic treasure. In that case, even the second-level quasi-saint of the dark race was slightly inferior to him in terms of speed. Thus, he was the first one to catch up with Ningfan. Black gourd. Could it be a divine tool, the Qi and blood gourd? Ningfan scanned his opponent's black gourd with his spirit sense, and found out that it was just an ordinary innate magic treasure. It could not sense his divine blood at all. He could not help but feel a little speechless. Wishful thinking. I just got my second divine weapon, and now I'm thinking of getting a third one. How can there be such a coincidence? Dark bright finger. A massive black sun appeared behind him. It turned into a gigantic finger and approached Ningfan in an instant, trying to crush him to death. It was the dark bright finger that a first-level demigod used. Its power was much stronger than the one used by Black Rope. Divine sword slashing Dao. Ningfan did not even turn his head. Using his true form, he shot out thousands of Dao slashing sword lights behind him, slashing the gigantic finger until black blood flowed out from it. However, it was still not enough to break the gigantic finger head-on. After all, it was the dark bright finger used by a quasi-sage realm demigod. Fortunately, after Ningfan's attack, most of the power of the gigantic finger had been reduced. Only 10 to 20% of the finger's power landed on his body and drowned him. Humph! Did I hit him? It seems like even if this brat doesn't die, he will at least suffer a heavy loss. The quasi-sage realm demigod was sneering. All of a sudden, his old eyes widened in shock. It was Ningfan's 100 Zhang golden body. He rushed out of the sea of black light formed by the finger force, and only coughed out a small amount of blood. His injuries did not seem to be serious. Impossible. How can a mere immortal venerate of 10,000 ancient times only suffer a light injury from a single finger of mine? The quasi-sage realm demigod found it hard to believe. Then his killing intent intensified. If one finger doesn't work, then I'll use 10 fingers or even 100 fingers. As long as my attacks are effective, I will definitely be able to kill this brat. He had the innate demigod gourd, which was a low-grade innate traveling treasure. This brat's speed is very fast. However, no matter how fast he is, it is impossible for him to escape from the hands of a quasi-sage realm demigod who possesses an innate traveling treasure. You are not the only one who possesses an innate traveling treasure. Ningfan sneered. He stepped on the sky with his gigantic feet, and a gigantic dark cloud suddenly appeared beneath his feet. His eternal true body was originally shining with golden light, like a heavenly deity. Now that he was standing on the dark cloud which was filled with black qi, he looked like an ancient devil god after being dyed by the black qi. His aura was filled with a lot of evil qi. The effect of the dark immortal cloud was to increase the host's speed based on their speed. In other words, the faster Ningfan's speed was, the faster he would be able to fly using this cloud. During the emperor crowning ceremony, he had gained a great understanding of the art of escape. His original speed was already extremely heaven-defying. Now that he used the dark immortal cloud to increase his speed, he only needed a single leap to open up a distance of millions of clouds between him and the gourd quasi-sage. After 100 breaths, he had completely shaken off the quasi-saint gourd. Impossible. I don't believe it. How could a mere 10,000 ancient immortal venerable have a connate escape treasure? He's even faster than me. He is not a cultivator of the Light Clan. Where are the emperors? Stall this lad and don't let him escape from the great darkness heaven. The gourd saint ordered angrily. His voice pierced through the clouds, reaching the first level of heaven and the 19th level of heaven. The entire 19th level of the great darkness heaven echoed with his angry roar. All the dark tribe cultivators who heard the roar were stunned. The quasi-saint elder immortal dark gourd who was the best at speed actually did not manage to catch up with Ningfan. Instead, he ordered the others to stop him. Could it be that Ningfan's speed is actually faster than this quasi-sacred realm elder, and all the other quasi-sacred realm elders? Bang! 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 Countless cultivators who tried to block his way were directly killed by Ningfan's eternal true body. Their blood splattered across the sky. Ning Fan stepped on a black cloud and raised the shield in front of him like a devil god. Be it immortal venerables or immortal kings, none of them could withstand the force of his charge. They would be directly killed by him. Unfortunately, they were sent flying away while coughing out blood. Each of them looked extremely miserable. Even though the battle in the Dark Continent was frightening, only a few people knew how ferocious Ning Fan was. However, this time, everyone from the Dark Ancestor to the commoners of the Dark Race had witnessed Ning Fan's fearlessness with their own eyes. Even a quasi-saint could not catch him. Even an immortal venerable or immortal king could not stop him. If he wanted to come, he would kill every single one of the 19th level of heaven. If he wants to leave, even the old ancestor would not be able to stop him. Moreover, there was an explosive news that spread among the members of the Dark Race using various methods. The reason why the successor of Ancient Chaos had left was because the battle against Black Rope had ended. The successor of Ancient Chaos won. Even Lord Divine Venerable is not a match for this successor of Ancient Chaos? Damn it. Damn it. This successor of Ancient Chaos has plundered countless immortal materials from our clan. Now he is going on a killing spree. How can we let him go? Stop him. But we can't stop him. All the quasi-saints are in the higher sky. We can't catch up to him. Who can stop him? In the lower sky, the cultivators who were guarding the Dark Realm Gate were anxious. Suddenly, a voice that calmed them down was heard. All of you don't panic. All the immortal emperors of our clan have gathered in the lower sky. If the successor of Ancient Chaos arrives, we will certainly kill him to restore the glory of our clan. It was the voice of a group of immortal emperors who were brimming with killing intent. Chapter 11:10. At this moment, all the remaining immortal emperors of the Dark Race had gathered in the lower sky. There were 14 of them in total, and each of them wore a grim expression. Among them, there were immortal emperors who had fought against Ning Fan before, and there were also immortal emperors who had never fought against Ning Fan before. The immortal emperors stood in a line in the sky. The aura force between them collided with each other like torrents. Under the cover of their emperor auras, the low-level cultivators found it hard to even breathe. When they heard that Ning Fan had defeated the monster Black Rope, all of them were shocked. Everyone knew how powerful Black Rope was. He was an existence that even quasi-saints could not defeat. However, he was defeated by Ning Fan. It was unbelievable. What was even more unbelievable was that Ning Fan's cultivation base was much lower than Black Rope's. There was actually someone who could defeat a monster like Black Rope who was at a higher level than him in the Dharma ending era. Doesn't this mean that Ning Fan is even more monstrous than that monster? Even though the 14 immortal emperors sounded confident, their hearts were actually beating like a drum. This lad was able to defeat Black Rope and escape from under the noses of 5 quasi-saints. It would be very, very difficult to stop him from leaving. This young man has hidden his strength very well. With the strength he showed earlier, it is certainly impossible for him to defeat Black Rope. It is highly possible that he still has powerful techniques that we don't know about. We must not be careless. However, the old ancestors' order is absolute. Even if we die here, we must stop this young man. We must not let him leave. If we can't stop him even after exhausting all of our strength, won't we become the laughingstock of the entire Eastern Heaven? As long as we can stop him for a while, the elders of the quasi-saint realm will naturally catch up to us. By then, it will be as easy as flipping our hands to take him down. What we need to do is to delay him. I'm just afraid that he will use the water drowning realm bottle in a desperate situation. Humph. Don't be afraid. This time, I have prepared some techniques that can suppress water. We don't need to be afraid of that bottle anymore. Hehe. What a coincidence. I have also prepared some trump cards. This time, I certainly won't be beaten by that water drowning realm bottle, and have to run away in a panic. I also have some defensive measures that I'm waiting to use. It's fine if that Ning Fan doesn't use the water drowning realm bottle. However, if he uses it, I will certainly make sure that he won't be able to return. While the monarchs were solemnly swearing, a voice as cold as hell suddenly came from the distant sky along with the endless wind and rain. It carried a hint of mockery. All of you seem to be afraid of me using the water drowning bottle. Don't worry. This time, I will not drown all of you. It was actually Ning Fan's voice. With the help of the rain technique, his voice traveled across the domain. It carried endless killing intent, and reverberated across heaven and earth with a thunderous voice. Some of the cultivators of the dark race with weaker cultivation bases directly coughed out blood after hearing Ning Fan's voice, which sounded like the heavenly might. After all, I don't only have one innate middle-grade magical treasure, the submerged vase. Rumble. When the rain arrived, so did the thunder. Amidst the wind and rain, there was a sudden flash of lightning. It was like countless ancient divine swords piercing through the sky, illuminating the originally dark world as bright as day. Some unlucky dark race cultivators couldn't dodge in time, and were directly turned into ashes by the lightning. Even immortal primes and immortal kings were severely injured when they were struck. They were greatly shocked. It was because the heaven-splitting lightning was actually innate lightning. With Ning Fan's current cultivation base, even an immortal emperor would have to use some methods to remain unscathed under that lightning. The lightning had arrived, but the person had yet to arrive. Before Ning Fan arrived, a huge cauldron which emanated an ancient chi broke through the sky and approached them with unparalleled lightning might. Before the monarchs could see clearly what that huge cauldron was, one of them was already hit by it. Blood spurted out from his mouth, and his face was filled with shock. Smashing people was not the main ability of this cauldron. However, given the grade of this cauldron, even a normal strike from it would have boundless power. Suddenly, the lid of the cauldron opened. Rays of unparalleled divine light shot out from the cauldron, and turned into a rain of light that covered the sky. When it pierced through the darkness, it was indescribably beautiful. The rain of light was silver lightning that was so dazzling that one could not look at it directly. Even immortal emperors could not open their eyes because of the lightning. Some immortal emperors tried to look at the lightning forcefully, but their eyes were directly blinded by it. 2 streams of black blood flowed down from their eye sockets. They were extremely shocked. Some other immortal emperors tried to spread their spirit sense while braving the rain of light. As a result, their spirit sense was directly penetrated by the dense rain of light. They could not sense anything at all. Their eyes could not see anything. Their spirit sense could not sense anything. This immemorial lightning cauldron was a magic treasure that combined attack and control. It could trap people inside the cauldron and kill them. It could also release dazzling lightning to block the enemy's vision and spirit sense. At this moment, Ning Fan was still being chased by quasi-saints. He did not have the time to fight these immortal emperors at all. He did not even have enough time to use the water flood bottle. Therefore, he directly used the immemorial lightning cauldron to block the eyes and spirit sense of the monarchs from locking onto him. Then, he took the opportunity when the monarchs could not even open their eyes to ride the dark immortal cloud, and rushed past the defense of the 14 monarchs. The monarchs wanted to stop him, but they could not even see where Ning Fan was. They could not even lock onto his chi. Naturally, they could not do anything to stop him. If they attacked blindly with their eyes closed, they might hit their own people. The loss would outweigh the gain. After a long time, the rain of lightning dissipated. The immemorial lightning cauldron was also nowhere to be seen. Ning Fan had already taken it away. Countless guards of the dark race who were blinded were rolling on the ground in pain and moaning. The faces of the 14 monarchs darkened. None of them expected that Ning Fan actually had a second mid-grade innate magic treasure. Moreover, it was such an unusual magic treasure that could actually release such a strong light that could even blind the eyes of immortal emperors. Even though no one was killed by the immemorial lightning cauldron, at least tens of thousands of cultivators on the scene were blinded, and their sea of consciousness was severely injured. Among them, there were 2 immortal emperors. What a powerful magic treasure! It was simply the best equipment to kill and rob others. If someone chases after him, he could directly blind the enemy's eyes and injure their sea of consciousness. Then he could escape with ease. Damn it! There is no longer enough combat power in the lower levels to stop him from escaping. This is a great humiliation. This is definitely the greatest humiliation that our clan has ever suffered since the founding of our clan. We actually lost all our face because of an immortal venerate from the ancient times. He can come and go as he pleases. I'm not convinced. This young man is just relying on the advantage of his magic treasure. What kind of ability is that? If he has the guts, he doesn't need to use his magic treasure or the cross-shaped halos. I only need to flick my finger to kill him. I'm going to chase him out of the great dark heaven and the dark continent. I'm going to tear him into 1,000 pieces. Go after him. However, could they catch up to him? Even the quasi-saint Gord who possessed an innate escaping treasure could not catch up to Ning Fan. How could a group of immortal emperors catch up to him? Currently, Ning Fan was fully confident that he could escape from the pursuit of most of the second-step cultivators in terms of speed alone. The 9th heaven, the 12th heaven, the 15th heaven, the 19th heaven. Ning Fan left the 5 quasi-saints and 14 immortal emperors far behind him. He barged his way out of the great dark heaven and flew away from the dark continent. All the cultivators who tried to stop him along the way were killed by him. However, none of them could make him stop. The seal of the dark continent was broken by Ning Fan's ancient devil mountain-breaking fist. If he wants to leave, how could the seal of the continent stop him? Even though he had successfully escaped from the dark race, his face did not show much joy. After all, escaping was not honorable. This time, his strength was far inferior to the dark race. Thus, he could only create a small disturbance in the dark race. If there is a next time, he would turn the entire dark race upside down. As for whether he would be hunted down by the dark race after this incident, Ning Fan smiled. It didn't mean that the dark races would let him go just because he was obedient. Since there was no difference, what's the harm in acting presumptuously? This time, he had gained a lot of benefits by creating havoc in the dark race. In terms of achievements, he had killed many immortal venerables and immortal kings of the dark race. He had even killed 2 dark emperors. In terms of gains, he had plundered the dark race and borrowed their resources to improve his cultivation base. His cultivation base of all 4 elements had advanced to the eternal world. This style of using war to nurture war made him like a bandit cultivator. Bandit cultivator? It's better to be a bandit cultivator. Most importantly, he did not bring shame to the name of the ancient chaos successor. He was supposed to be an extremely realistic person. It was difficult for him to risk his life for fame and fortune. However, this time he made an exception for the sake of that old man who was struggling at death's door. No matter how he looked at it, it was not a wise move to fight the dark race alone. However, if it was to protect the ancient chaos great emperor's glory, he did not care whether it was wise or not. At least the outcome was not bad. It was not a loss for him to come to the dark race this time. After this battle, the dark race will certainly not let this matter rest. In that case, even though I don't want to trouble Senior Xiang and the others, I have no choice but to borrow their strength to fight a real war against the dark race. Ning Fan planned to ask Xiang Bozi and the other 2 quasi-saints for help after leaving this place to deal with the dark race's revenge. Just as he was about to leave, a loud crumbling sound came from the dark continent behind him. Among the crumbling sound, there was a young man's unwilling roar. Ning Fan, I won't accept this battle. Your victory isn't fair. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed. He turned his head abruptly and saw that the millions of continents in the dark continent were collapsing crazily for some unknown reason. It was as if they were all destroyed by a single blow from someone. It was a young man with dog ears. He was walking in the midst of the crumbling continents. He was holding a gigantic dark door with one of his hands as he walked closer to him. No matter how powerful the collapse of the continents was, it did not affect his blood chi too much. The collapse of the continents had destroyed all the dark realm gates that connected to the great dark heaven. Only the one in the young man's hand was not destroyed. He had purposely kept it intact. This young man was actually Black Rope, who was supposed to be knocked out by Ning Fan. Judging from the situation, Black Rope had not only woken up from his temporary coma, but also somehow managed to catch up to Ning Fan from the height of the 2nd heavenly layer before all the experts of the dark races. He was the first one to chase Ning Fan out of the great dark heaven from the 2nd heavenly layer. He was even faster than the quasi-Saint Gord. I indeed won this battle unfairly. However, do you think your dark race is fair? You're here to kill me, aren't you? There's no point in talking anymore. Let's do it. Ningfan said with fear. Initially, he planned to leave immediately after escaping from the dark race. However, it seemed like he would not be able to leave the dark race easily if he does not get rid of Black Rope's pursuit first. Moreover, Black Rope actually managed to catch up to Ningfan from the Great Dark Heaven before the Quasi-Saint Gourd. The extreme speed that he displayed might already be close to that of ancient great cultivators. Ningfan knew that his extreme speed was not as fast as Black Rope. It was almost impossible for him to get rid of Black Rope's pursuit with his speed. If that was the case, he needed to think of another way to get rid of Black Rope. Fight? Humph. You're not qualified to fight me right now. You only know how to plot against me. It's meaningless to fight you. Black Rope's expression was filled with indignation and hatred. However, he did not have the intention to fight Ningfan for some reason. He was obviously gritting his teeth, looking as if he could not wait to kill Ningfan with his own hands. However, at the same time, he was trying his best to suppress the killing intent in his heart. After struggling for a while, Black Rope finally retracted all of his killing intent and let out a snort. The power that you used to make my sea of consciousness dizzy is the god-exterminating power of the ancient country, isn't it? I should have known that your golden flame giant's Dharma image should be the god-exterminating shield of the ancient country. I can only blame myself for being born too late in the age of chaos. That's why I have never seen this shield with my own eyes. Otherwise, I would have at least shown you some mercy when I fought you earlier. What is this Black Rope talking about? Did he come all the way here without the intention to fight me? You've incinerated the fragments of the god-exterminating shield of the ancient country. You possess the god-exterminating power, and the divine technique that allows all living beings to communicate with each other. According to the rules of my ancient country, you can at least be listed as the fourth successor to the Divine King. Even though the ancient country no longer exists, I still don't want to hurt you if it's possible. The fourth successor to the Divine King? What does he mean? I've burned half of my divine chi and blood in exchange for a speed that surpasses the ancient great cultivators in a short period of time. That's why I'm the first one to chase after you. I want to tell you one thing. The next time we meet, we will be mortal enemies. As long as you and your master, Ancient Chaos, are still on the same side and take on the responsibility of protecting the illusionary world, we will meet again in the end. The dark race has too many secrets that you don't know. Will we meet again in the future? Of course, I can't tell you those secrets. No matter what, I will never betray my master. I've broken the Dark Continent and destroyed all the space nodes that connect to the Great Dark Heaven. It's already too much. Without a few years to repair the space nodes, the other members of the dark race won't be able to chase after me. In these few years, no one from the dark race will be chasing after you. As for whether the dark race will still be in the Eastern Heaven after a few years, it's hard to say. My father's incinerator will be in your hands for the time being. The next time we meet, I will defeat you and take back the incinerator in the most dignified manner. Goodbye, Aunt. The future of our race is beyond the heavens. It's not something that an ant from the Eastern Heaven can look up to. Bang! In a flash, Black Rope entered the last Dark Realm gate that he was holding and returned to the Great Dark Heaven. At the moment he entered, he smashed the last Dark Realm gate with a punch. Just like that, all the passages connecting the Dark Continent and the Great Dark Heaven were destroyed. Black Rope went back just like that, leaving behind millions of pieces of the Dark Continent that continued to crumble. The mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. It was a complete mess. Ningfan's brows were tightly knitted together. He did not understand why Black Rope suddenly came and left. Considering that millions of pieces of the Dark Continent were all destroyed by Black Rope, Ningfan guessed inwardly. Could it be that Black Rope purposely came to help him? Even though his tone was irritating, could it be that he actually had good intentions? One should know that the Dark Continent was the only way to connect the Great Dark Heaven to the Eastern Heaven. If all the space nodes are destroyed, even the quasi-saints of the Dark Race would not be able to leave the Great Dark Heaven before the space nodes are repaired. They could only be trapped in their race. Black Rope's action of destroying millions of pieces of the Dark Continent had unknowingly cut off all the possibilities of the Dark Race's cultivators chasing after him out of the great dark heaven. He had helped him block their pursuers. If this is not help, what is it? To be honest, Ning Fan also had the intention to destroy all the space nodes of the Dark Continent. However, millions of pieces of the Dark Continent were connected together. The difficulty of destroying all of them was no less than destroying a mid-grade innate magic treasure with a single punch. Ning Fan knew that he could not do it. Thus he could only give up on this idea. However, Black Rope was able to do it, and he really did it. They were obviously enemies. Why did Black Rope help him block the pursuers of the Dark Race? Judging from his respectful expression when he talked about the Dark Ancestor, he did not have the intention to betray the Dark Race. However, why did he help the enemies of the Dark Race? This person mentioned the God-destroying shield of the ancient country, and the successor of the Divine King. Could it be that the reason why he helped me is because I have the God-destroying shield of the ancient country? God-destroying. 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 What kind of special meaning do these two words have to the divine beings of the ancient country? The God-destroying shield did not hesitate to burn itself to force me to embark on the path of the divine spirit realm. Black Rope also helped the enemies against his will, because of this item. There must be a lot of things behind the two words God-destroying that I don't know about. Besides, even though Black Rope's words are vague, it seems like he is hinting at something. It's like he is reminding me. As long as you are still of the same mind as your master, Ancient Chaos, and take on the responsibility of protecting the illusory world, we will meet again in the end. The 10 great secret clans were the guards that immortal sovereign Zido left in the illusory world. No matter what their reputation was, they at least took on the responsibility of protecting the illusory world. However, Black Rope's words seemed to be telling Ning Fan that the Dark Race was not like that. It's hard to say if the Dark Race will still be in the Eastern Heaven after a few years. Where else could they go if they are not in the Eastern Heaven after a few years? What exactly is he trying to imply? The future of our race is beyond the heavens. It's not something an ant like you can look up to in the Eastern Heaven. Beyond the heavens and not the Eastern Heaven. What does he mean by that? Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly solemn. Even though he was not proficient in the Tao of divination, he could sense the undercurrent in the Dark Continent after Black Rope's reminder. Something big is about to happen in the Eastern Heaven. It seems like it has something to do with the Dark Race. All of a sudden, Ning Fan felt a little dispirited. Initially, he wanted to become stronger in the future and compete with Black Rope again. However, Black Rope had helped him once, which greatly reduced the hatred he had for him. After remaining silent for a while, he still turned around and flew away from the Dark Continent. No matter how the Dark Continent collapses behind him, it seemed to have nothing to do with him anymore. A long time after he left, no cultivators from the Dark Continent came after him. As expected, because the spatial node was destroyed, no one could enter or leave the Great Dark Heaven freely. A few months later, the collapse of the Dark Continent shook the entire Eastern Heaven. Some meddlesome immortal emperors restored many images of the Dark Continent from heaven and earth. Among them was the scene where Ning Fan fought against the entire Dark Race alone. Once the news spread, the entire Eastern Heaven was in an uproar. No one would have thought that Ning Fan would go to the Dark Continent all by himself and fight against the entire secret race alone. Most importantly, after the battle with the Dark Race, Ning Fan actually returned to the Slaughter Palace unscathed. It was simply unbelievable. As for the Dark Race who had been humiliated, they did not do anything for some reason. They just let Ning Fan continue to jump around in the Eastern Heaven, as if they could not see him. Strange. It's too strange. Countless cultivators in the Eastern Heaven were guessing what exactly happened between Ning Fan and the Dark Race. Unfortunately, even immortal emperors could only restore a few scenes of the battle from the ruins of the Dark Continent. It was very difficult for them to speculate the details. They only knew that Ning Fan had killed many members of the Dark Race on the Dark Continent. During the battle on the Dark Continent, countless members of the Dark Race had been killed by Ning Fan. Why didn't they take revenge? This did not fit the dark style of the Dark Race. Some people guessed that the Dark Race had reached an agreement with Ning Fan for some benefits. Some others guessed that the dark race had changed their nature and was too lazy to take revenge on Ningfan anymore. Only a few old monsters of the Eastern Heaven found the answer from the broken spatial node of the Dark Continent. It was not that the dark race did not want to take revenge on Ningfan. It was just because the spatial node was destroyed that they could not come to the Eastern Heaven to punish Ningfan. Hehe. This Ningfan is really cunning. He actually destroyed the spatial node between the dark race and the Eastern Heaven. No wonder the dark race did not take any action for so long. Unfortunately, this move was not very useful. To a colossal being like the dark race, repairing the spatial node won't take too long. At most, it will take a few years for them to return to the Eastern Heaven. At that time, the dark race will probably start a bloodbath in the Eastern Heaven. Their spearhead will certainly be Ningfan. Some people who hated Ningfan secretly spread this kind of rumor. This rumor spread further and further. Gradually, all the cultivators in the Eastern Heaven knew that there would be a great battle between the dark race and Ningfan in a few years. The forces that were on good terms with Ningfan were paying close attention to this matter. Once Ningfan is in trouble, they would immediately lend him a helping hand. They would not hesitate to die in battle. As for the forces that were on bad terms with Ningfan, they were waiting for an opportunity to strike Ningfan when the dark race was in trouble. Ningfan himself was also guarding against the dark race. He was already mentally prepared to fight them to the death. However, the dark race had yet to show up. Is Black Rope helping me in the dark? 1 year passed. 3 years passed. 10 years passed. 20 years passed. Logically speaking, the spatial node of the dark race should have been repaired after such a long time. However, the strange thing was that the spatial node on the Dark Continent did not show any signs of being repaired. It was as if no one in the dark race planned to repair these spatial nodes at all. They just let them be destroyed. 20 years passed. The wind in heaven and earth began to show signs of chaos. There were many old monsters in the Eastern Heaven who were proficient in divination. Their sharp senses captured the situation. Gradually, the cultivators of the Eastern Heaven stopped paying attention to the conflict between the dark race and Ningfan. They only thought that the two of them had reached some kind of reconciliation. What they paid more attention to was the frequent signs of chaos in heaven and earth. 7 months ago, many of the starry skies in the Eastern Heaven were filled with demon stars piercing through the sky. It seemed to be related to the strange changes in the passage between the heavenly demon world and the 4 heavens 4 months ago. In the boundary river between the 4 skies, there was a sudden outsider riot. The cultivators of the various sects that were guarding the eastern sky boundary river were unexpectedly slaughtered by those outsiders. This matter caused the various sects of the eastern sky to be furious. 2 months ago, Great Emperor Han Yun of the Eastern Heaven led his disciples to the foreign races in the boundary river to demand an explanation. A total of 400 immortal cultivators went there, but none of them returned. As for the life tablets that these people left in their sects, all of them were shattered, including the life tablet of Great Emperor Han Yun. Without a doubt, another Eastern Heaven Great Emperor had fallen. Moreover, he actually died in the hands of the foreign races in the boundary river. The 4 heavens and the demon race were connected by the passage. The passage was located inside the 4 heavens and separated them in the form of the boundary river. In the past, the cultivators of the 4 heavens had to cross the boundary river to reach the other heavenly realms. However, no one knew what happened inside the boundary river. If the cultivators of the other 3 heavens went to the Eastern Heaven through the boundary river, all of them would be killed by the foreign races in the boundary river. If the cultivators of the Eastern Heaven wanted to go to the other 3 heavens, they would also be killed. Moreover, it was unknown why there was a shielding force above the boundary river, causing all the communication between the Eastern Heaven and the other 3 heavens to be cut off. On this day, a total of 9 Eastern Heaven Great Emperors gathered in the cave of Emperor Tsong. Each of their faces was as gloomy as water. What exactly is going on? The foreign races of the boundary river and the cultivators of my 4 heavens have always minded their own business. Why did they wantonly kill my disciples this time? Moreover, they even killed fellow Taoist Han Yun. You should know that fellow Taoist Han Yun had always been on good terms with the foreign races of the boundary river. Whenever there was a change in the foreign races of the Boundary River, it was always fellow Taoist Han Yun who appeared and quelled everything. But this time, they unexpectedly didn't even let fellow Taoist Han Yun off. Too arrogant. A seventh tribulation immortal emperor in red robes angrily said. This was great Emperor Qi Tuo. He could be considered a senior figure among the Eastern Heaven great emperors. He rarely walked in this world. If it wasn't for the fact that his direct descendant was killed by the foreign races of the Boundary River, he absolutely wouldn't have appeared here. Well, water minding its own business? That's just a false peace that the Four Heavens sect asked us to send in living sacrifices every 1,000 years. Fellow Taoist Qi Tuo, could it be that you've forgotten that 320,000 years ago, my Eastern Sky cultivators had a great battle with the foreign races of the Boundary River? Fellow Taoist Shui Yin and Fairy Chu, he perished in that battle. The foreign races of the Boundary River have been hostile towards our Four Heavens cultivators for a long time. A middle-aged immortal emperor with a face full of stubble coldly snorted. He was immortal Emperor Tai Li, an eternal eighth tribulation immortal emperor. He also rarely walked in the Eastern Heaven. However, the foreign races of the Boundary River shouldn't have killed his disciple. Thinking about how his disciple died tragically in the Boundary River without a corpse remaining, immortal Emperor Tai Li's eyes became bloodshot. If it wasn't for the fact that the foreign races of the Boundary River were powerful, with his hot temper, he would have already killed his way to the Boundary River by himself. Such a big mess has happened in the Boundary River of the Eastern Heaven. It's fine if the secret races don't care, but the Four Heavens sect unexpectedly also doesn't care. Until now, they still haven't sent anyone to investigate. It seems like in the next 1,000 years, our Eastern Heaven sects don't need to pay any taxes to the Four Heavens sect. We can just directly withdraw. Great Emperor Mo, he sinisterly said. He had always disliked the Four Heavens sect, so he didn't mind looking for an opportunity to defame them. Fellow Taoist Mo, his words are wrong. According to this old man's deduction, it's not only my Eastern Heaven Boundary River that is in chaos. The Western Heaven, Southern Heaven, and Northern Heaven Boundary River are all in chaos. Especially the Northern Heaven, it seems to be the most chaotic. I'm afraid the Four Heavens sect's energy is all on the Northern Heaven. That's why they can't divert their attention to the matters of my Eastern Heaven. We can only blame the fact that the chaos in the Boundary River this time is not a small matter. Even cross-domain communication can be blocked. We have already lost contact with the Four Heavens sect of the Northern Heaven for a long time. It's very difficult to share information. Otherwise, even if the Four Heavens sect doesn't care about the Eastern Heaven, they would at least give us a certain amount of authority to deal with the matters of the Boundary River. It was the great Emperor Ji Wang who defended the Four Heavens sect. He was a sixth tribulation immortal emperor. In terms of cultivation, he couldn't be considered as an expert among the Eastern Heaven emperors. However, he was extremely good at the Tao of divination. Every time the Eastern Heaven emperors were puzzled, they would seek this emperor's help to make one or two deductions. Therefore, even though this emperor's cultivation wasn't strong, he was extremely popular in the Eastern Heaven. Because of this, after being rebuked by the great Emperor Ji Wang, even though great Emperor Mo he didn't like it, he didn't argue with him face to face. Instead, because of the great Emperor Ji Wang's words, he muttered to himself and became serious. All the emperors present were stunned by the great Emperor Ji Wang's words. It turned out that it wasn't only the Eastern Heaven Boundary River that had strange changes. The Four Heavens Boundary River had all gone wrong. Furthermore, the Northern Heaven was actually the most ferocious. Could it be that those strange races want to betray the Four Heavens law again, and have a battle with our Four Heavens? Unfortunately, all the people that were sent to the Boundary River to investigate have died. Currently, none of them have returned alive. Therefore, this emperor is still unclear about the attitude of the strange races in the Boundary River. If they don't start a war, then it's fine. If they do start a war, I don't know if we have to make some preparations. Great Emperor Shin Kong coldly snorted. If the strange races in the Boundary River really want to start a war again, I'm afraid the Eastern Heaven will flow like a river of blood again. The matter that Junior Brother is worried about is also what I am worried about. Although we haven't ascertained the intention of the strange races in the Boundary River, we have to guard against this possibility. After all, if we don't make preparations with the ferocity of the strange races in the Boundary River, once the war starts, the flames of war will burn most of the starry skies in the eastern heaven. There will be countless casualties. I'm afraid the foundation of our emperors will also suffer disastrous losses. The Void Great Emperor sighed. I suggest that we, the immortal emperors, issue a conscription order to the entire eastern heaven. The Boundary River is of great importance. We can't afford to lose it. Even if these strange races want to start a war, they must set the battlefield inside the Boundary River. We can't let the flames of war burn the entire eastern heaven. Seeing that everyone didn't mention a solution and only talked about other things, Songdi had no choice but to suggest this. What Taoist Song said is correct. Songdi's identity was special. He was a disciple of a quasi-saint. Moreover, his master, Taoist Musang, was the strongest of the three great quasi-saints in the eastern heaven. His words naturally carried the most weight among the emperors. Once he said it, everyone instantly agreed with him. In fact, all the emperors had the intention to issue a conscription order. However, this matter didn't have the permission of the four demonic sect. Therefore, no one dared to take the lead. Currently, because of the chaos in the Boundary River, the eastern heaven had already completely lost contact with the other three heavens. They couldn't receive any orders from the four demonic sect. Even if it was a special time, issuing a conscription order without permission was still a big crime. There always needed to be someone with a deep background to take the lead. Songdi was naturally the most suitable candidate to take the blame. Even if the four demonic sect condemned him afterwards, considering that Songdi's master was Taoist Musang, it was impossible for Songdi to be heavily punished. At most, he would only be reprimanded in writing. Since it's like this, I will draft a conscription edict and announce it to the world. Only, the edict must have the signatures of all Taoist fellow Taoists. This point, does anyone have any objections? And naturally, there is no objection. As the saying goes, the law doesn't punish the masses. If we draft the edict together, we can also make the four demonic sect have nothing to say. Songdi faintly smiled. Others were astute, but he wasn't stupid. He could take the lead in issuing the conscription order. However, if the four demonic sect were to punish him, it would be better for everyone to bear the crime together. Several days later, with Songdi as the leader, a total of 9 Eastern Heaven emperors jointly issued an immortal edict. This immortal edict was only issued to the sects of the second step, and above in the Eastern Heaven. The wording of the edict was extremely forceful, and there was no room for rejection. The foreign races in the Realm River have wreaked havoc in our Eastern Heaven. I hereby order the Eastern Heaven immortal sects to gather in the Realm River, and denounce the foreign races. Those who don't come will be killed. As soon as this immortal edict was issued, the entire Eastern Heaven was in a state of shock. Everyone knew that the Eastern Heaven, which had been in constant turmoil, was going to be engulfed in unprecedented chaos again. Compared to the chaos in the Realm River, the filthy relationship between Ningfan and the Dark Race was directly ignored and forgotten by everyone. As the sect master of the Thousand Years sect and the palace master of the Slaughter Palace, Ningfan naturally received such an immortal edict. Of course, because Ningfan had a good relationship with Taoist Musang, Songdi, who was the first disciple of Musang, used quite polite words to Ningfan. The Eastern Heaven is in chaos. I will go to the Realm River in a few days to guard the Eastern Heaven. I wonder if younger brother will come? Ningfan sighed. He put down the immortal edict in his hand and remained silent. If the chaos in the Realm River was related to the rise and fall of the entire Eastern Heaven, it was impossible for Ningfan to ignore it. After all, there were too many people that he cared about in this Eastern Heaven. It was impossible for him to allow the foreign races in the Realm River to slaughter and wreak havoc. However, the chaos in the Realm River this time suddenly reminded him of Naylan Z's 3 Lives divination in the past. I saw the future. A terrifying future. The 4 heavens will be isolated. There will be a great war in the Northern Heaven. After that, the Spirit King will die. He will die in the hands of the Western demon ancestor. Ling Air, who was eaten by the Spirit King, will also die. In the past, he did not understand what this divination was talking about. Now he slightly understood the first part of it. The four heavens will be isolated. This isolation is referring to the chaos in the realm river. Does it mean that all kinds of communication between the four heavens will be blocked? There will be a great war in the northern heaven. Currently, the divination of Great Emperor Ji Wang had already spread across the eastern heaven. According to Great Emperor Ji Wang, the chaos in the realm river in the northern heaven was the most serious. Ning Fan found it hard to imagine what kind of great chaos was happening in the northern heaven today. It was actually so serious that the four primordial sects could not divert their attention to interfere with the situation in the eastern heaven. One should know that when the Sun Luo incident caused chaos in the eastern heaven in the past, the four primordial sects had already sent people over. However, the situation this time seemed to be even more serious than that. It was related to the rise and fall of the eastern heaven. However, the four primordial sects remained silent. Has the northern heaven already fallen into great danger? The figures of Luo Yu, Yuan Yao, Bei Xiaoman and the other women appeared in front of Ning Fan's eyes. All of them seemed to be the cultivators of the northern heaven. The eyeball monster and candle bow also seemed to be in the northern heaven. Have they been involved in the chaos? Also, the Black Devil sect was Old Devil's sect as well as Ning Fan's sect. Have they been affected by the chaos? Ning Fan could not help but admit that when he heard the divination of Great Emperor Ji Wang, his heart was in a mess. Suddenly, he gave an order to the Nether Sea Immortal King who was standing beside him. Then he strode out of the Slaughter Palace. Nether Sea, I'm going to leave the Slaughter Palace for some time again. When I'm not around, you will be the Vice Palace Master of the Slaughter Palace. You will be in charge of everything in the Slaughter Palace. Where are you going, Palace Master? The Realm River. Could it be that Palace Master is going there alone again? 20 years ago, it was already extremely inappropriate for Palace Master to go to the dark races alone. This time, don't worry. I won't go deep into the Realm River recklessly. I'm just going to the border of the Realm River to meet up with Emperor Tsang and the others. Palace Master, you should bring more people with you. There's no need for that. I'm going to take a look at the situation first. If the chaos in the Realm River is really too serious to be dealt with, I will summon all of you. Ning Fan flew away from the Slaughter Palace. He did not immediately go to the Realm River. Instead, he went to the Godly Void Pavilion first. He went straight to the Divine Tomb. At the bottom level of the tomb, he looked at the empty ancient Chaos Palace in silence. The physical body of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos had gone missing. It had gone missing mysteriously in the past 10 years. Of course, according to Xiang Bozi's words, Great Emperor Ancient Chaos did not go missing. Instead, he went to deal with something privately. Is my master not back yet? Ning Fan sighed and asked Xiang Bozi who was beside him. Don't worry. Great Emperor Ancient Chaos has his own sense of propriety. He first pretended to be dead, and then disappeared without a trace. He must have something important to deal with. The dark races haven't returned yet. Yes, the clone that I left in the great darkness obscurity. Heaven did not find any sign of the return of the dark races cultivators. In my opinion, the chaos in the Boundary River this time might be related to the disappearance of the dark race, and the ancient Chaos Emperor might have come out of the Divine Tomb because of this. So listen to this old man's advice. You shouldn't go to the Realm River. The foreign races in the Realm River are not as weak as you think. Instead, they are terrifyingly strong. That was why they were suppressed by immortal sovereign Zido under the Realm River. Thank you for your reminder, Senior. I will pay attention to my safety. My heart is getting old. I really don't dare to meddle in the affairs of the mortal world anymore. However, if you need my help, just give me a call, and I will certainly go to the Realm River to help you. Thank you in advance, Senior. Don't thank me like that. If it wasn't for the extreme yang water that you gave me, I'm afraid I won't be able to see the path to the second-level quasi-saint realm in my life. By the way, isn't that Madame Zhongyu going to the Realm River with you? She seems to have really touched the bottleneck of the first-level quasi-saint realm, right? Yes. She is currently at a crucial stage of her cultivation. It's not suitable to bring her along this time. I will be fine by myself. If you encounter any difficulties, look for that young man from the Tsang clan. He is Musang's disciple. I'll remember that. Ning Fan flew out of the divine tomb and headed straight to the realm river in the eastern heaven. When he passed by the dark continent, he stopped for a while. Then he flew away from this place again. The dark race no longer existed. No one knew where the entire dark race had gone to. There was nothing in the great dark sky. This was what Xiang Bozi and the other old monsters discovered when they secretly repaired the spatial node and entered the dark race. Why did the dark race, a colossal being, abandon the eastern heaven? Where did they go? And where did the great emperor Ancient Chaos go? It's hard to say if the dark race will still be in the eastern heaven after a few years. Black Rope's words all those years ago had come true. According to Black Rope, the next time they meet, they would be true enemies of life and death. In other words, the dark race would certainly not disappear forever. They would certainly return. The dark race, the Devil Conferral Summit. Ning Fan flew all the way to the realm river in the eastern heaven with various speculations. At this moment, tens of thousands of cultivators of the Eastern Heaven Immortal sect had gathered at the border of the realm river in the eastern heaven. It was an unprecedented alliance meeting with the Immortal Emperor as the leader. All the second step immortal sects and forces in the entire eastern heaven had to join. Hiss. That's Wuxia Yun, isn't it? It's the 8th generation killing Emperor Ning Fan. He actually came. As soon as Ning Fan arrived, countless cultivators' expressions changed. They stood up to welcome him. They could only blame Ning Fan's current reputation. It was already so great that it was even more intimidating than some immortal emperors of the Eastern Heaven. Chapter 11:11. In the universe there was no concept of up, down, left, or right. In order to determine one's position, one had to choose a reference. The boundary river was the reference for the four heavens to determine the direction. The horizontal plane of the boundary river was the horizontal direction of the eastern sky. The vertical direction of the center of the boundary river was used to determine up, down, left, right, north, south, west, east. Once they entered the boundary river, it was as if they had stepped into another world from East Heaven. One step away was the vast and empty starry sky of the eastern sky. One step away was the surging river that connected the water and the sky. Two completely different sceneries intersected at the border of the boundary river. It was bizarre and dazzling, giving one a shocking feeling. Even though the boundary river was called a river, it was not an exaggeration to say that it was a boundless ocean. At the border of the boundary river, there was a huge ferry built on the riverbank. It had been there since ancient times, and people called it the Taiyuan Ferry. Every cultivator that entered and exited the eastern sky had to pass through here. They either departed by boat or arrived by boat. Starting from the Taiyuan Ferry, there were a total of 12 waterways that connected different realms. 9 of the waterways had been abandoned over the years and had become stagnant areas. The remaining 3 waterways connected the north, west, and south heavens, and were used by cultivators from the 4 heavens. Above the 12 waterways, every few days, they would see a giant mountain pass. Throughout the years, there were eastern sky cultivators guarding these mountain passes. One reason was to prevent other heavenly realms cultivators from wreaking havoc on the eastern sky's borders. The second reason was to prevent the water race at the bottom of the boundary river from harming the eastern sky. Because of the chaos in the realm river, the hundreds of passes on the waterway were all broken through by the foreign races, and the cultivators who guarded them were all brutally massacred. Only the Taiyuan Ferry was not breached by the foreign races in the realm river in a short period of time, because the ferry's formation was extremely strong, and it was guarded by the immortal emperor, who guarded the river all year round. Otherwise, it was extremely likely that the foreign races would invade the eastern heaven on a large scale right now, burning, killing, and plundering. This time, the border river meeting initiated by Emperor Tsang would be held at Taiyuan Ferry. Although the alliance meeting was only held in the name of 9 immortal emperors, there were many immortal emperors who responded. On the surface, the eastern sky's 16 emperors had lost 14 people because of the Senluo's chaos. Later on, due to the successive deaths of the 7th Slayer Emperor and the Great Emperor of Han Yun, There were only 12 of them left. However, in reality, there were even more celestial emperors who lived in seclusion and were unknown to the world. However, after seeing the 9 emperors' celestial edict, they responded and came. When Ning Fan arrived at the Taiyuan ferry on a cloud, there were already tens of thousands of immortal cultivators gathered there. The flags of hundreds of sects were fluttering in the sky above the ferry. It was truly a gathering of heroes. Another 20-plus immortal emperor realm chi vaguely spread out from one of the gigantic golden ox palaces at the ferry. Ning Fan recognized a small portion of their chi, but most of them were very unfamiliar to him. Clearly, the owners of those unfamiliar chi were all cultivators who lived in seclusion and were not well known in the Eastern Heaven. Forget about the hundreds of sections. It had only been 6 days since Emperor Tsong's conscription order had been issued. There were at least tens of thousands of second-step immortal sects in the Eastern Heaven, and some of them were far away from the border river. At this moment, the ones that had arrived first were the ones that were relatively close to the border river. There were even more powers that were still on the way to the border river. On the other hand, the number of immortal emperors surprised Ning Fan for a moment. With so many immortal emperors keeping watch over the Taiyuan crossing, if the outsiders really wanted to invade Eastern Sky, it would be wishful thinking. What made him slightly surprised was that as soon as he arrived at the Taiyuan crossing, he was warmly welcomed by tens of thousands of cultivators. The scene was so big that it was not an exaggeration to say that it had shaken the entire city. This made Ning Fan not know whether to laugh or cry. He who had always been notorious, actually received such a warm welcome from the sects of the Eastern Heaven. He was not used to such a scene. Even though he was not used to it, it was not that he could not understand it. There were many wars in the Eastern Heaven. Almost every day, there would be a war that broke out. From this point of view, the Eastern Heaven should be the heaven world that was the most disunited and the most unpeaceful. However, if a huge crisis that could affect the entire Eastern Heaven really appeared, the cultivators of the Eastern Heaven would usually unite as never before and unite together to face the external threat. This point had been proven many times in history. Whether it was the 4 heavens in the past, the Demon World War, or the Great Chaos of the Border River 32 million years ago, or the Sun Luo Rebellion, the cultivators of the Eastern Heaven had always been very united. Among the hundreds of immortal sects that had arrived at this moment, only a few of them were forcibly summoned by Emperor Tsong, and the others with a strict conscription order. However, there were even more sects that came on their own initiative. For example, those immortal emperors who lived in seclusion could not be forced by Emperor Tsong and the others, but they still came. The hot-bloodedness of Zido immortal cultivators was deeply engraved in the bones of the Eastern Heavens cultivators. The reason why they fought and killed each other was just to fight for resources. They had no other choice but to do so. However, if foreign invaders came and a disaster was imminent, most of the Eastern Heavens cultivators would still have hot blood burning in their veins and dare to fight against the invaders. The tragedy 32 million years ago was a wake-up call for every cultivator of the Eastern Heaven. That year, when the foreign races of the border river invaded the Eastern Heaven, the number of cultivators in the entire Eastern Heaven plummeted by 70%. 10,000 immortal sects were erased from history, and 9 out of 10 cultivation planets were empty. Many old monsters who had lived for a long time had deep memories of the tragedy of that year. That was why they attached so much importance to the chaos of the border river. In order to prevent that kind of tragedy from happening again, countless sects felt that it was their duty to defend their territory, and came on their own initiative. There were also some immortal emperors who lived in seclusion who did not hesitate to step into the mortal world again to settle old scores with the foreign races of the border river. This time, everyone was united against the foreign invaders. Thus, they naturally welcomed Ning Fan's arrival even if his reputation was very bad and terrible. After all, Ning Fan's strength was extraordinary. He was a strong support that was worth looking forward to. As an enemy, he was a headache. As a companion, however, he couldn't be more reliable. When Ning Fan arrived at the Taiyuan crossing, the meeting had already lasted for 6 whole days. Every day, the sect masters of various sects would come to this place from afar. As soon as he arrived at the Taiyuan crossing, A few thought-breaking old monsters with high status immediately flew towards him. Their expressions were filled with caution as they questioned him. "We are the cultivators of the Taurus Palace in the Taiyuan Crossing. We were invited by Emperor Tsang to be in charge of all the matters of the meeting. May I ask if you are the Palace Lord of the Slaughter Palace, Lord Ning Fan?" Even though Ning Fan's reputation had already spread across the Eastern Heaven, only a few people had actually seen him before. For example, the cultivators of the Taurus Palace had been guarding the border river for generations and did not care about the mortal world of the Eastern Heaven. Even though these few thought-breaking old monsters could sense the tremendous aura force coming from Ning Fan's body, and they had memorized his appearance and chi in advance, they still needed to interrogate him to confirm his identity. What if he is a member of a foreign race in the border river in disguise? It was not as if such incidents had never happened before. In just a few days, there were many foreign races in the border river who disguised themselves as cultivators of the Eastern Heaven and tried to sneak into the meeting to wreak havoc. Fortunately, they were all caught by the cultivators of the Taurus Palace. "It's me. Do you have any proof?" "How?" "Lord Ning, please place your palm on this killing chi stone. If you are a member of a foreign race in disguise, the killing chi stone will sound an alarm. However, if you are not a member of a foreign race, there will be no reaction." "Oh, there have already been cases of foreign races in disguise during this meeting?" Ning Fan was slightly surprised. "Yes. Up until now, there have been 44 cases of foreign races sneaking into our territory. The most serious case even involved an immortal king of a foreign race. Because of that, we have no choice but to be more cautious. Please forgive us if we have offended you, Lord Ning. It's just a small matter. Just hand over the killing chi stone." Ning Fan nodded his head. He did not have the intention to make things difficult for the few cultivators of the Taurus Palace. He placed his palm on the killing chi stone that the few thought-breaking old monsters passed to him. As expected, the killing chi stone did not have any reaction. Seeing Ning Fan being so cooperative, the few cultivators of the Taurus Palace were surprised. At the same time, they heaved a sigh of relief inwardly. This eighth killing emperor does not seem to be as unreasonable as the rumors say. At the very least, he is still very polite to those with lower cultivation bases. He is much kinder than many old monsters who bully others with their strength. The few of them kept the killing chi stone and apologized to Ning Fan respectfully. Then, they led Ning Fan to the Taurus Palace. Ning Fan had been cooperating with the actions of the cultivators of the Taurus Palace. Unknowingly, his behavior had won the favor of the Taurus Palace. "Senior brother, this Ning Fan doesn't seem to be as rude and unreasonable as you described him to be. I think he is an honest man. We can make friends with him during this meeting." Inside the Taurus Palace, an elderly immortal emperor with a 6 tribulation cultivation base said to a 7 tribulation immortal emperor beside him with a smile. These two people were none other than the 2 emperors of the Taurus Palace. They were Emperor Jin Hung and Emperor Niu Hung, who were also known as the 2 sages of the Boundary River. The one who spoke was Emperor Niu Hung. Although he had white hair, he gave off a bold and fierce aura. It seemed like he was quite good at body refinement. The other 7 tribulation immortal emperor was Emperor Jin Hung. He did not comment on his junior brother's words. Instead, he said meaningfully, "You may know a person's face but you don't know his heart. Junior brother, you are good at everything but you have too many friends. There are Taoists everywhere in the world. You must know that in the world, people are always superficial but not refined." "Huh. Senior brother still likes to talk about principles. I always believe in my intuition. I feel that this Ning Fan is not a bad person. It's fine if you don't believe me. He has already arrived outside the Taurus Palace. It's our turn to welcome him. Even though he has yet to become an emperor, he has killed an immortal emperor before. He is infamous. We must not neglect him." "Senior brother, you are really long-winded. I have already said that I want to make friends with him. How can I neglect him?" The 2 of them looked at each other and smiled. Then they turned into 2 rays of golden light and flew out of the Taurus Palace. Judging from the appearance of the Taurus Palace, it looked like a 10,000 zhang divine ox. It lowered its head and monitored the realm river. It hinted that the responsibility of the cultivators of the Taurus Palace was to guard the border of Eastern Heaven for generations. Ning Fan secretly observed the layout of the Taurus Palace. He felt that the layout of the Taurus Palace was incomparably powerful. Obviously, there was a peerless grand formation hidden here. It was no wonder that the Taurus Palace could withstand the attack of the foreign races and take back the Taiyuan Ferry with just 2 emperors. The 2 emperors of the Taurus Palace and the 2 sages of the Realm River did have some real capabilities. They were not weak among the immortal emperors. But the Palace Lord of the Slaughter Palace is here. I hope fellow Taoist Ning can forgive me for not going out to welcome you. 2 ear-piercing sounds were heard. 2 rays of golden light flew out of the Golden Dragon Palace and landed on the ground. They turned into 2 emperors and cupped their fists at Ning Fan. It's Ning Fan. I dare not trouble you 2 to welcome me. You are too polite. Ning Fan returned their greetings politely. While the 2 of them were secretly studying him, he was also secretly studying the 2 sages of the Realm River. The one with the higher cultivation base should be Emperor Jin Hung. His chi was condensed without releasing it, but there was golden light flashing on the surface of his body, giving people a feeling that all Daos were unbreakable. This person seemed to have cultivated some kind of extremely powerful protective ability. He belonged to the peak existence among the 7th Tribulation Realm. Besides, he seemed to have already taken half a step into the 8th Tribulation Realm. His potential was quite high. The one with the weaker cultivation base should be Emperor Niu Hung. Rumor has it that he is an interesting person. As long as he finds a cultivator who is pleasing to his eyes, he will marry them regardless of their cultivation base. Haha. As the saying goes, the most important thing in life is to have a good friend. A good friend is never too early. Even though it's my first time meeting fellow Taoist Ning. I don't know why, but I feel like we've known each other for a long time. I wonder if fellow Taoist is willing to become my sworn brother and share blessings and troubles together. Ning Fan was a little speechless. The rumor is actually true. Whenever this Emperor Niu Hung meets someone he finds pleasing to his eyes, he would forcefully become sworn brothers with that person. Junior brother. Seeing that his junior brother was being muddle-headed again, Emperor Jin Hang's tone sank slightly as a reminder. Emperor Niu Hung seemed to be a little afraid of his senior brother. When he saw that his senior brother was displeased, he immediately smiled awkwardly and said to Ning Fan, "Brother Ning, you don't have to answer me in such a hurry. About becoming sworn brothers, we can talk about it another day. Another day. Another day. Let's talk about it another day. I'm more concerned about the current situation in the Realm River. Fellow Taoists, can you help me clear up my doubts?" Of course. Even if fellow Taoist doesn't ask, I will also tell you about the situation in the Realm River. Let's talk about it after we enter the palace. Someone, bring me a pot of the heaven and earth spiritual tea that I have warmed on the heavenly bull cauldron. I need to treat my esteemed guests. Hiss. All the cultivators of the Taurus Palace were slightly surprised when they heard what he said. One should know that Emperor Jin Hung did not like wine, women or power. However, he had a deep love for the Tao of spiritual tea. The heaven and earth spiritual tea was a top-grade tea. There were many immortal emperors who responded to the meeting this time, but Emperor Jin Hung only treated 5 of them with the heaven and earth spiritual tea. All of them were 8 tribulation immortal emperors. Other than that, Emperor Jin Hung had never used this tea even when he was treating 7 tribulation immortal emperors. Does this mean that Ning Fan's importance in Emperor Jin Hang's eyes is already comparable to that of an 8 tribulation immortal emperor? The group of people entered the Taurus Palace. The host and the guests took their seats. Not long after, the heaven and earth spiritual tea was served. To be honest, Ning Fan was not the kind of cultivator who flaunted his elegance. Compared to leisurely tasting tea, he preferred to gulp down strong wine. However, since the other party treated him with such good tea, if Ning Fan did not take a few sips of it, it would be a disgrace to the host. Thus, he remained patient and slowly tasted the tea. Gradually, he was able to taste the tea. Emperor Jin Hung secretly observed Ning Fan. He was different from Emperor Niu Hung. He looked at people very slowly and meticulously, Just like how he was tasting tea. He needed to sip it slowly and carefully. He could naturally see that Ning Fan did not mind drinking the tea. However, he also noticed Ning Fan's politeness. Ning Fan's way of dealing with people was not a pretense. Instead, it was a habit that was engraved in his bones. This young man seems to have a good character. If that's the case, I can tell him some of the key matters of this meeting. I don't have to worry that he doesn't know what's important, and will only seek personal benefits. The reason why Emperor Jin Hung paid so much attention to Ning Fan's character was naturally because of the dispute in the border river this time. It was highly likely that an all-out war would break out between the Eastern Heaven and the foreign races in the border river. Even though more than 20 immortal emperors had come to this meeting, not all of them could be entrusted with important matters. Undeniably, among these immortal emperors, there were indeed some who got involved in this dispute for personal grudges and personal benefits. After observing for a while, Emperor Jin Hung finally got to the point and told Ning Fan about the situation of this meeting. Up until now, there were 22 immortal emperors, 41 immortal kings and 73 immortal venerables living in the Taurus Palace. Among them, Emperor Jin Hung and Emperor Niu Hung were not included. On the surface, there were only a total of 9 immortal emperors in the Eastern Heaven. For example, Emperor Tsang and Emperor Shunsu were people who frequently traveled around the world. As for the remaining immortal emperors, they were all immortal emperors who had not been involved in the mortal world for a very long time. In the long passage of time, many of the older generations had disappeared in history. There were already very few people who still remembered these older immortal emperors. I didn't expect that Emperor Tsang could actually summon so many immortal emperors. In this case, even if there's really a mess in the Realm River, it will be settled very quickly, right? Ning Fan asked. It's difficult. Fellow Taoist, you might think that having more than 20 immortal emperors in this meeting is already a lot. However, you might not know that compared to the foreign races in the Realm River, even if we have more than 20 immortal emperors, we are still at a disadvantage. Oh, could it be that the number of immortal emperors of the foreign races in the Realm River is even higher? As far as I know, even the secret race only has 10 to 20 immortal emperors. In the entire Eastern Heaven, there are only tens of immortal emperors in total. The foreign races in the Realm River shouldn't be stronger than the secret race, and the entire Eastern Heaven combined, right? Sigh. Fellow Taoist's bone age is too young. I suppose you don't know much about the previous turmoil in the Realm River. Has fellow Taoist heard about the turmoil of the foreign races in the Realm River 32 million years ago? I've heard a little about it. It's said that during the previous turmoil, the foreign races in the Realm River were invincible. They had almost conquered more than 90% of the starry skies in the Eastern Heaven, and slaughtered 70% of the cultivators in the Eastern Heaven. Fellow Taoist, do you know that during the previous turmoil in the Realm River, only less than 10% of the immortal emperors of the foreign races were dispatched? What? The foreign races in the Realm River only dispatched 10% of their immortal emperors, and they were already able to cause such a huge mess? Why have I never heard about this before? It's not surprising that fellow Taoist has never heard about it. In fact, there are very few people in the entire Eastern Heaven who know about the background of the foreign races. After all, the depths of the Realm River is not a place that anyone can enter whenever they want to. The ancestors of my Taurus Palace had witnessed the entire process of immortal sovereign Zido suppressing the foreign races in the Realm River with their own eyes. That's why we know more about them. All of them are the information passed down by our ancestors. Their credibility is very high. I also feel that fellow Taoist is a reliable person. That's why I told you this information. If it's someone else, I would certainly tell you about it. Emperor Jin Hung said meaningfully. From time to time, his words would reveal the intention of befriending Emperor Jin Hung. Unfortunately, Ning Fan was currently in a state of shock. He did not respond to Emperor Jin Hung's goodwill. If Emperor Jin Hung did not tell him about it, Ning Fan would never know that the foreign races suppressed under the Realm River had such a terrifying foundation. They only dispatched 10% of their immortal emperors to conquer the Eastern Heaven. If they go all out, perhaps even the Eastern Heaven's secret clans and quasi-saints would not be able to stop them, right? If Ning Fan was alone, he would not be afraid of the strength of the foreign races in the Realm River. However, he was not a lone ranger. He had too many people he cared about in the Eastern Heaven. He was not sure if the chaos in the Realm River this time would develop to the same level as the last time. He was not sure if the Eastern Heaven would lose as many people this time. There had never been a moment when Ning Fan wanted to protect the Eastern Heaven as much as he did now. He was never a noble person who cared about the world. However, his desire to protect his loved ones had been clear since he began cultivating the Tao. After recovering from his shock, Ning Fan's expression turned solemn. After pondering for a while, he asked, "Even though the foreign races in the Realm River have a strong foundation, I'm afraid they can't dispatch all of their experts at once due to certain reasons, right?" Fellow Taoist's guess is correct. The foreign races in the Realm River can at most send 10 to 20 immortal emperors at once. That's already their limit. The thing that's restricting the foreign races should be the seal that immortal sovereign Zido placed down, right? Yes. If the seal is still there, the foreign races in the Realm River can only send 10 to 20 immortal emperors at most. Fellow Taoist, I don't think you would purposely remind me that 20 immortal emperors are still not enough. Could it be that there's a problem with the seal that immortal sovereign Zido placed down in the Realm River? Could it be that the restriction on the foreign races in the Realm River has weakened to some extent? Oh, fellow Taoist has even guessed this. You're really an intelligent person, just like what the outside world says. I won't hide it from fellow Taoist. Up until now, the only ones qualified for me to treat them with World Spirit Tea are the Grey Emperor, the Divine Void Emperor, the Iron Plow Emperor, and the 8 Scenic Emperor. Before this, I only told these 5 people about the changes to the Boundary River seal. The rest of my fellow Taoists still don't know about this. The foreign races in the Realm River have done this very carefully. They thought that no one would notice it. Thus, I followed their wishes and didn't plan to make this matter public. Instead, I planned to deal with the problem of the immortal sovereign's seal in secret. Fellow Taoist, you've kept this matter a secret but only told me and the other 6 fellow Taoists. I'm afraid you're going to borrow our strength in some way, right? That's right. Can I give you my answer after listening to fellow Taoist's entire plan? Of course. There are still many immortal sects who have yet to arrive at the Realm River. It's estimated that more than 60,000 second step immortal sects will arrive at the Realm River in half a year's time. At that time, the Realm River meeting will truly begin, and the Oath of Allegiance will be held. However, most of these immortal sects are only forces at the Life Immortal Realm, or the Crossing Truth Realm. There won't be more than 1,000 forces at the Shikong Realm or above. I plan to suggest the Alliance Master, who is also fellow Taoist Songdi, to arrange for these forces to be stationed at the Taiyuan Crossing and the coastal areas. They will only defend and not attack. They will guard the only entrance to the Eastern Heaven in the Realm River. Then, arrange a few immortal emperors to guard the place. We won't let any foreign races invade the Eastern Heaven. After that, half of the immortal venerables and immortal kings will be led by the immortal emperors. They will be responsible for recovering the hundreds of passes on the Realm River. These passes are related to the immortal sovereign's seal. Each of them is of great significance, and we can't afford to lose them. If we can recover all of them, our chances of winning the battle against the foreign races will increase to 50%. Lastly, I need a few Taoists whose cultivation bases are at the 8th Tribulation Realm and above to help me sneak into the depths of the Realm River and secretly repair the immortal sovereign's seal. This matter is the most dangerous one. I won't force fellow Taoist to participate in it. However, if fellow Taoist is willing, I will be very happy to have such a strong ally like fellow Taoist. Ning Fan's eyes were extremely solemn. Sneak into the depths of the Realm River? That was no longer the difficulty of defending against the attacks of the foreign races on the surface of the river. It was simply suicide. Before he knew about the background of the foreign races in the Realm River, Ning Fan had already heard about the dangers in the depths of the Realm River. Phoenix Emperor Chong Ming had once entered the depths of the Realm River to retrieve the Thunder King seal. His injuries were so severe that he was on the verge of death. Great Emperor Han Yun led 400 disciples into the depths of the Realm River to negotiate with the foreign races. In the end, he couldn't even escape. Now that he knew about the background of the foreign races in the Realm River, Ning Fan could guess that the foreign races in the Realm River, which had a stronger background than the secret races, certainly did not lack quasi-saints. Moreover, there might also be ancient great cultivators among them. No wonder even a quasi-saint like Xiang Bozi said that the Realm River was dangerous, and advised him not to get involved in this matter. Presumably, even a quasi-saint like Xiang Bozi did not have the confidence to sneak into the depths of the Realm River. From this point of view, it was already a miracle that Phoenix Emperor Chongming could survive in the depths of the Realm River that day. Phoenix Emperor Chongming. Ning Fan sighed softly. During the past few years, he had been busy with many things. Even though he had gathered all the innate soul-nourishing spiritual medicines, he still did not manage to save the daughter of the Phoenix Emperor. Now that the grudge with the Dark Race had come to an end, and the matter regarding the ancient Chaos Great Emperor was no longer under his control, perhaps it was time for him to fulfill his other promises. Fellow Taoist, you seem to be absent-minded. Are you thinking of something in the past? Emperor Jin Hung asked with a smile. I just thought of some private matters related to the Realm River, and got distracted. Sorry for my rudeness. Hehe. It doesn't matter. Since fellow Taoists can still think of it at such a critical moment, it must be something very important. It's a promise that I owe someone and I haven't fulfilled it yet. I feel guilty about it. Do you need help from the two brothers? There's no need for that. It's not a difficult matter. I can handle it myself. Thank you for your concern, fellow Taoist. If there's anything that you need our help with, fellow Taoists can just tell me. I'm different from my junior brother, but I also have a good impression of fellow Taoist. If fellow Taoist doesn't mind, I'm willing to be thick-skinned and befriend fellow Taoist. I wonder if fellow Taoist will give me face. Brother Jean, you must be joking. From the moment I drank this pot of spiritual tea of yours, aren't we already friends? Haha. Fellow Taoist is right. Since that's the case, I won't be courteous with Brother Ning anymore. I hope that Brother Ning can consider my request. You don't have to give me an answer in a hurry. Now is not the time to dive into the depths of the Realm River. You don't have to make a decision for the next 10 years. I will consider this matter carefully. The other immortal emperors are all resting in the side palaces of my Taurus Palace. If there's a need, Brother Ning can visit your old friends there. You don't have to be too reserved in the Taurus Palace. I'm afraid you must be tired after traveling for a long time. Do you need me to personally bring you to a side palace to rest? No need. I'm not a person who cares about these things. Since Brother Jean is in charge of receiving the cultivators of the Alliance meeting, you must have a lot of things to do. I won't disturb you any longer. All right. Someone prepare the best side palace for this guest to rest. Yes. A few charming maids led Ning Fan away with blushing faces. They had received Emperor Jin Heng's order in advance to prepare human cauldrons for Ning Fan. If Ning Fan needs them, they would have the obligation to fulfill his physiological needs. Each of these maids was full of primordial yin. Even the lowest cultivation base was at the crossing true realm. Besides, each of them had a unique physique of a human cauldron. All of them were high-grade human cauldrons. Considering that Ning Fan was the successor of ancient chaos who cultivated the Tao of dual cultivation, and had a fondness for women, Emperor Jin Hung had specially arranged these human cauldrons to serve him. The other immortal emperors did not receive such treatment. After all, they were basically people who had a pure heart and few desires. This made Ning Fan feel grateful for Emperor Jin Heng's treatment, but at the same time, he felt a little speechless. Sure enough, his reputation in the world had become extremely bad. Everyone thought that he could not live without women. The few maids followed Ning Fan to the side palace. Immediately, they spoke in a sweet voice. Lord, are you going to rest now? Do you need us to serve you? To be honest, other than having a bad reputation, Ning Fan's appearance, cultivation base and strength were all top-notch. His spring palace painting was extremely popular in the Eastern Heaven. There were also many female cultivators in the Eastern Heaven who wanted to have a night with him. Perhaps these ladies would reject the idea of serving ugly old men with bad tempers. However, most of them were willing to serve Ning Fan. Ning Fan rubbed his temples, which were throbbing in pain, and sighed. I don't need you to serve me. You all may leave. He was worried. He really did not have the mood to seek pleasure between a man and a woman. After hearing his words, the few maids retreated with disappointment. Ning Fan did not immediately go to visit the other immortal emperors. Instead, he sat on the bed in silence. Sometimes he would take out the divine dragon 100 herb garden. However, he did not activate the transformation of this treasure. He just held the shrunken 100 herb garden in his palm and played with it. His eyes fell on the tiny soul grass, which had also shrunk countless times. He felt bitter. When he was young, he had just started cultivating the devil Tao. He had no restrictions on women. However, he did not know why his feelings towards women had changed ever since he met the sword ancestor in Ji Qingling. It might not be accurate to say that he was lustful. It might also not be accurate to say that he had a pure heart and few desires. He had never been a good man who kept his chastity. He could do whatever he wanted with many human cauldrons without any moral principles. In the past, he thought that as long as it was for cultivating the Tao of dual cultivation and plucking his enemies, he could do it as long as he was a woman. He had always thought that he was such a person. However, he was not. He did not want to admit it, but he had to admit that some women on the path of cultivation could easily arouse his desire. However, most of them would make him instinctively reject the matter between a man and a woman. This had nothing to do with whether the woman was beautiful or ugly. It also had nothing to do with whether the woman was a friend or a foe. It was a feeling. Some women could make him feel something, but most of them could not. The morning moon in the ancient desolate mountain takes 10 years to complete. The tide of the defying mortal sea takes 100 years to rise. The fog of the vast expanse path takes 1,000 years to recede. The green peaches of the ancient heavenly court take 10,000 years to bloom. The bell orchid of the heavenly desolate ancient realm takes 100,000 years to bloom. As for me, I am only allowed to have a smile every few million years. I have waited for a long time. I have left you a lot of things. What did you leave for me? From a butterfly to a human, everything seemed to have been arranged by you. Master Ancient Chaos once said something that I didn't understand in the past. But now I seem to understand it. It's you. You are that butterfly. That woman came to the Zido immortal domain for you. She also gave up everything for you and re-entered the samsara cycle. This was what Ancient Chaos Heavenly Emperor had said to him after he had entered the Divine Tomb and met Ancient Chaos Heavenly Emperor. In the past, Ning Fan did not know who was the woman that Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor was talking about. But now he understood. You are the Sword Ancestor, the #1 Immortal Emperor in the Ancient Desolate Immortal Domain. However, you came to the Zido Immortal Domain for me. It's like a betrayal. Master Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor said that you once gave up everything for me and re-entered the samsara cycle. What does that mean? You seem to have done a lot of things for me, but I can't remember any of them. The wind blew into the side hall from the window. The sound of the wind was filled with inauspiciousness and turmoil. Ning Fan was getting more and more annoyed by the sound of the wind. Only when he looked at the tiny soul grass in the 100 herb garden would he feel relieved. That night, he had a strange dream. In the dream, he was still the butterfly in the past. He was plucking flowers from a cluster of flowers like a prodigal son. However, after plucking countless flowers, he realized that all the flowers had disappeared and there was only one flower left. When he woke up from the dream, Ning Fan was lost in thought. He did not know what the meaning of this dream was. The sky was still dark, and there was only a sliver of white light in the east. Suddenly, a guest came to visit and made a lot of noise along the way. Before Ning Fan could open the door to welcome them, they had already entered without hesitation. Ha ha ha. Brother Ning came to the Taiyuan ferry, but you didn't come to meet us. Instead, you slept in your bed. What kind of logic is this? You deserve to be punished. You deserve to drink 1,000 cups of wine as punishment. Come, come, come. I happen to have brought enough wine with me. I'm waiting for a few stinky drinking buddies. Let's drink until we're drunk. Ning Fan smiled in annoyance. It was early in the morning when the sun had yet to rise, but these 3 bad friends had already come to disturb his peace. Luo Ho, Lu Feng and Yin Lei. The three of them had also responded to the conscription order and came to participate in the alliance meeting. No, there's actually another chi that came together with the three of them. Ha ha ha. Come. I flipped through the Eastern Skies Almanac. Today is a suitable day to get married, move the ground, draw the lottery and start the fire. Most importantly, it's a suitable day to establish an alliance. Yesterday, we didn't manage to become sworn brothers. Today you have to give me face and become my sworn brothers. Ning Fan immediately felt a headache. Why did Emperor Niu Hung also come here, as if he was a close friend? Yesterday he was basically discussing business with Emperor Jin Hung. He did not even talk much with Emperor Niu Hung, did he? Both of them did not have much of a relationship at all. However, this Emperor Niu Hung actually had the nerve to come and disturb him. He was really not courteous at all. However, after being disturbed by these people, the feeling of disappointment in Ning Fan's dream became fainter. Forget it. In the daytime, one must indulge in wine. Even though it's still early. If I have wine and friends, what's the harm in getting drunk? Chapter 11-12. In the blink of an eye, it had been 3 months since Ning Fan arrived at Taiyuan Crossing. During these 3 months, he had visited most of the immortal emperors here. There were also many immortal kings and immortal venerables who came to visit him. Between cultivators, such a short amount of time was naturally not enough to build a deep friendship. They just wanted to familiarize themselves with each other to prevent them from not knowing each other when the Great War breaks out in the future. As the alliance meeting continued, more and more Eastern Heaven cultivators came to Taiyuan Crossing. Under the arrangement of the cultivators of the Taurus Palace, more and more fortresses were built on both sides of Taiyuan Crossing. The chi of experts who could sweep through heaven and earth could be seen everywhere. Those fortresses were integrated into the formation system of Taiyuan Crossing. They were like the wings of a wild goose, guarding both sides of Taiyuan Crossing. Under the superposition of the formation system, the more fortresses that were integrated into the formation system, the stronger the overall power of Taiyuan Crossing's formation. The defensive forces along the Boundary River gradually showed their extraordinary strength. However, the murderous atmosphere was also getting heavier day by day. A month ago, a small group of foreign races began to attack Taiyuan Crossing. In the end, as soon as they broke through the water, they were killed by the defensive formation before they could get within 100 li of Taiyuan Crossing. None of them escaped alive. Half a month ago, a few immortal kings of foreign races crossed the river and attempted to attack the formation of Taiyuan Crossing. In the end, they were instantly burned to ashes by the fire of the formation. 5 days ago, 2 immortal emperors of foreign races joined hands to attack the formation. However, they still failed to break through the formation and were forced to retreat in a sorry state. The confidence of the Eastern Heaven cultivators who lived along the Boundary River to resist the foreign races grew day by day. However, those with discerning eyes could smell the coming storm from the constant attacks of the foreign races on the formation. Every day, the Taurus Palace would send men of sacrifice to the bottom of the border river to find out the intentions of the alien races. They wanted to know if the alien races really wanted to start a war, or if they just wanted more sacrificial offerings. None of the spies that were sent to the bottom of the river came back alive. Some immortal kings who joined hands to enter the water also met the same fate. As a result, even immortal emperors did not dare to enter the water recklessly. During these 3 months, Ning Fan had been staying in the Boundary River, but he had always kept in touch with the Slaughter Palace. He rejected Immortal Loli's request to join the battle. The little demoness wanted to represent the godly Void Pavilion, but she was also rejected by him. There were also Yao Qingyun and Ouyang Nuan. He did not know why he had stopped them from participating in the battle. It was obvious that the more people that came, the more secure the Realm River would be. However, perhaps he was just an ordinary person. Perhaps he had his own selfish motives. Perhaps he just didn't want to let those beautiful women die in this battle. Father, you're tyrannical and unreasonable. Why is it that you can go to the battlefield, but Xian Xian can't? Xian Xian is an immortal emperor. You are the immortal supremacy. If I say no, then no. Why? Because I am your father. Wow. You're unreasonable. You're bad. That husband, I have a responsibility to protect East Heaven. I will come for this battle. No. Why? Because I disagree. Why you're being unreasonable? Hee, that's right. I've always been an unreasonable person. Because in this world, there are too many things that can't be explained with just words. If you only rely on kindness, righteousness and trust, you won't be able to survive. Ning Fan looked at the surging river below the cliff and remained silent. He wanted to send his rain sense into the water to explore the foreign races at the bottom of the realm river. However, every time his rain sense entered the water, it would be covered by a layer of turbidity. He couldn't see anything clearly and could only return empty-handed. He actually couldn't get any information about the foreign races. It was highly possible that he was the person who was the best at scouting abilities in this place. If even he couldn't do it, who else could? Suddenly, a small green sword flew across the sky and landed in his hand. It turned into a voice transmission. It was Emperor Tsong's voice transmission flying sword, summoning him to the Taurus Palace for a meeting. He even said that all the immortal emperors, immortal kings and immortal venerables must be present for this meeting. This was the first time that the 10,000 ancient monsters were gathered for a meeting since the beginning of the alliance meeting. It seemed that there was really something important. Ning Fan only pondered for a while. Without wasting too much time, his body flashed and disappeared from the riverbank. He flew all the way to the Taurus Palace. When he arrived, there were already 70 to 80 ancient monsters gathered in the meeting hall of the Taurus Palace. There were even more people coming to this place. In the end, other than a few people who were absent due to missions, most of the 10,000 ancient monsters were present. Including Emperor Tsong himself, there were a total of 144 of them. It could be said that even a colossal being like the Dark Race did not have such a number of 10,000 ancient monsters in their clan. Without considering the combat power of a quasi-sage realm expert, the current strength of the Alliance army of the Realm River was actually stronger than a single secret race. Ning Fan's eyes swept across the crowd. The 24 immortal emperors who participated in this meeting were all present. Since this meeting was called by Emperor Tsong, he was nominally the leader of this meeting. Under his orders, the two immortal emperors of the Taurus Palace became the envoys of the alliance meeting. The other immortal emperors did not have any orders. Emperor Tsong was a handsome young man. Of course, in terms of bone age, it was impossible for him to be as young as he looked. He was just a manifestation of a divine ability and not his real body. Emperor Tsong's master was Taoist Mu Song. Naturally, he also cultivated the great Tao of wood. Trees are more outstanding than trees in the forest. This person looked young. He seemed to have comprehended some Tao intent of eternal youth from the great Tao of wood. The higher his bone age, the younger his appearance, Ning Fan guessed inwardly. As if he felt that Ning Fan was looking at him, Emperor Tsong gave him a friendly smile. That smile carried a hint of relaxation. Presumably, the matter that they were going to discuss today would not be too serious. It should have nothing to do with the overall strategy to fight against the foreign races. Almost everyone who was supposed to be here had arrived. Then someone stepped forward and cupped his fists at Emperor Tsong. May I know why did the Alliance Lord summon us here? Are we going to launch a large-scale attack against the foreign races under the water? Or, are we going to start taking back the hundreds of passes of the Realm River that we have lost? He was a 7 Tribulation immortal emperor with a strong face. He wore ancient clothes and had a long beard. A ceremonial sword was hanging from his waist. He looked like a middle-aged scholar. Ning Fan remembered that this person was called Lai Jun. He was a rogue immortal emperor. Because a few of his close friends had died in the chaos of the Realm River, he came to participate in the alliance meeting. He was extremely eager to take revenge for his friends as soon as possible. Since the beginning of the alliance meeting, Emperor Tsong had never mentioned the matter of attacking the foreign races. Many of them were waiting anxiously. Lai Jun was one of them. Emperor Tsong sighed and comforted the emotions of Lai Jun and the other people who wanted to join the alliance meeting. Then he explained to them the reason why they were summoned this time. Now that the attitude of the foreign races was still unknown, and the low-grade fellow Taoists who were participating in the alliance meeting had yet to arrive, It was naturally not the right time to start the war. Today, the reason why he summoned everyone here was actually to confirm the positions and duties of the 10,000 years old monsters in the Alliance. According to Emperor Tsang, as the Alliance meeting progressed, the defense on the Realm River had already begun to take shape. In today's meeting, he planned to officially choose 5 Vice-Alliance Lords, 8 main generals of the Realm River, 13 Vice-Generals of the Realm River and 14. Ning Fan closed his eyes and began to rest his mind. Honestly, he was not interested in matters like deciding the positions in the Alliance. Although the higher the position in the Alliance, the more benefits there would be, he did not like to deal with daily affairs and was also not good at it. He preferred to be free and carefree. Inwardly, he hoped that Emperor Tsang would not assign him a tough job. If he was asked to be a receptionist like the 2 wise men of the Realm River, and be so busy that he forgot to eat and sleep all day, it would really not be good. Most of the old monsters still wanted to express their opinions when there were more than 110,000 years old monsters in the meeting. Thus, the process of choosing the positions could not progress too quickly. It had already taken nearly 4 hours to choose the 5 Vice-Alliance Lords, but they had yet to confirm all of them. Among them, the 4 Vice-Alliance Lords were not difficult to choose. The difficult one was the 5th Vice-Alliance Lord. Other than Emperor Tsang, there were 4 other 8 Tribulation Immortal Emperors who were participating in the Alliance meeting this time. They were Void Sovereign, Divine Space Sovereign, 8 Scenery Great Emperor and Ironly Great Emperor. As 8 Tribulation Immortal Emperors who were on the same level as Emperor Tsang, they naturally would not have any objection to being the Vice-Alliance Lords. However, the last position of the Vice-Alliance Lord caused a dispute among the crowd. Some people recommended Extreme Dan Divine City's Yuan Dan Great Emperor to be the last Vice-Alliance Lord. Yuan Dan Great Emperor was a 7 Tribulation Great Emperor. Because he was in charge of the Extreme Dan Sacred Region, he was considered quite popular in Eastern Sky. It was not strange for him to be nominated. Taurus Palace's Golden Balance Great Emperor was also nominated. However, Golden Balance Great Emperor claimed that he was the receptionist and could not be the Vice-Alliance Lord at the same time, so he took the initiative to reject this matter. This made many old monsters secretly praise Golden Balance Great Emperor for his noble character and unquestionable integrity. Of course, there were also people who secretly ridiculed Golden Balance Great Emperor for his stupidity. If he could become the Vice-Alliance Lord of this Alliance meeting, once the flames of war really started, he would definitely be able to use this position to benefit from the flames of war. Jin Heng did not want the position of Vice-Alliance Lord, but there were people who wanted it. There was a Thunder Immortal Dao companion who recommended herself to be the Vice-Alliance Lord. There was a Sword Mountain 3 Sons who volunteered to fight for the position of Vice-Alliance Lord. There was a Ming River child who was eager to fight for this position. There was a Dongling Immortal Wang who expressed interest in this position. Other than that, although Qi Tua Emperor, Lai Jun Emperor, Madame Gui Hua and Machine Maker Emperor did not express their opinions, all of them were nominated. Ning Fan counted. There were 7 immortal emperors who took the initiative to fight for the position of Vice-Alliance Lord while 6 of them were nominated by others. None of the Immortal Venerables and Immortal Kings participated in the fight for the position of Vice-Alliance Lord because they were not qualified enough. However, there were some busybodies who nominated Ning Fan, but he rejected them himself. He did not want to be in charge of trivial matters. Thus, he did not want to be the Vice-Alliance Lord. Suddenly, a pair of enchanting eyes with a hint of splendor swept across Ning Fan's body. Ning Fan was stunned. He opened his eyes and followed the direction of the gaze. He realized that it was Madame Gui Hua who was looking at him. Her beautiful eyes actually contained a hint of seduction. She was a 7 Tribulation female empress. Her figure was graceful and her attire was quite exotic. Even though she was wearing a black dress and a black scarf, it did not reduce her attractiveness. Instead, it made her even more charming. The only unfortunate thing was that her face was covered with a black veil which concealed her appearance using a divine ability. Ning Fan could not see her clearly. However, judging from her figure, he could tell that her appearance was not bad. During the past 3 months, Ning Fan had visited most of the immortal emperors. Only a few of them rejected his visits. Madame Guihua was one of them. She had once rejected him outside the door. Ning Fan remembered that when this lady rejected his visit in the past, her eyes were quite arrogant and cold. However, he did not know why she took the initiative today. She was passionate, and even had the charm of seeking pleasure. Have you seen enough, fairy? Ning Fan smiled and asked her using telepathy. How can I see enough just by looking? I have to eat you to truly fill the emptiness in my heart. I have long heard of fellow Taoist Ning's romantic reputation. I wonder if I can have the honor to go to bed with fellow Taoist. The little maidservant that fellow Taoist Jin Hung arranged for me certainly won't be able to satisfy fellow Taoist. My 3 small mouths will definitely be able to satisfy you. 3 small mouths? Which 3? Cough cough. This Madame Guihua actually invited him in such a blatant manner. Ning Fan's expression did not change, but inwardly, he was speechless and felt strange. Is my charm really that great? It can actually make a female emperor take the initiative to invite me in such a blatant manner? If he really has such charm, why did he get rejected by Guihua when he requested to see her last time? Why did she take the initiative to look for him this time? Ning Fan secretly activated his mind-reading technique, wanting to see what this lady was thinking. However, he realized that he could not see through her thoughts. He could not help but feel strange. One should know that with his current cultivation base, ordinary 6th tribulation and 7th tribulation female emperors would not be able to resist his mind-reading technique at all. However, this lady seemed to have a secret treasure that could specifically resist mind-reading techniques. Tonight, during the Z hour, I will be in my room. You can do whatever you want. Everyone was talking about serious matters, but Guihua was busy seducing Ning Fan. I am cultivating some cultivation method today. It's not suitable for me to have fun. Ning Fan felt a little awkward and rejected her. He was worried about the Realm River. How would he have the leisure to fool around with an old devil woman? How long do you need to cultivate before you can have fun? I don't want to wait for a long time. Guihua frowned and asked him using telepathy. Are you in a hurry, madam? You should know that the more you are in a hurry, the less fun it will be. Ning Fan's tone was slightly teasing. However, the strange feeling in his heart became even stronger. He seemed to have guessed something. This Guihua seems to be in a hurry to seduce him into doing something? How long exactly? 10 years. Ning Fan made up a lie. Then forget it. I've misjudged you. Since you don't like me, I won't force you. Guihua hesitated for a moment, and no longer paid attention to Ning Fan. When she looked at Ning Fan again, her expression had returned to its usual coldness. It was no longer as passionate as before. This woman. Could it be that she is in a hurry to find someone to have fun with? And that's why she became respectful towards me? Seeing that I'm useless, she became indifferent again? Ning Fan guessed inwardly. While the crowd was arguing, the last candidate for the position of vice leader was eliminated one by one. In the end, the 5th vice leader was chosen from the 5-7 tribulation immortal emperors who were Yuan Dan, Guihua, Lai Jun, Qi Tuo and Dong Ling immortal father. These 5 people had roughly the same number of supporters. In that case, they would need to find another method to decide who was the most suitable candidate for the position of vice leader. Under Emperor Tsong's suggestion, the 5 of them would fight to decide who would be the most suitable candidate. After all, they were all cultivators. Strength was the foundation and the most convincing evidence. For this reason, the Golden Balance Great Emperor purposely opened a battle arena in the Taurus Palace for the 5 emperors to fight. Unfortunately, before the 5 emperors could start fighting in the arena, a ray of green light suddenly broke through the sky. It ignored the obstructions of the restrictions and the cultivators of the Taurus Palace, and forced its way into the Taurus Palace. In fact, most of the power of the restrictions of the Taurus Palace would only be effective against the foreign races. Only 10 to 20% of its power would be effective against the cultivators of the Eastern Heaven. Even so, it was extremely difficult to break through the layers of restrictions and force its way into the palace. Without a cultivation base that could be considered as the strongest among the 8 tribulation immortals, it was absolutely impossible to do it. The layers of restrictions were forcefully broken by that ray of green light, as if they were nothing. All of the 10,000-year-old monsters were shocked. They wondered who was breaking through the restrictions of the Taurus Palace. This kind of action was too strong and too bold. The person who came was an Eastern Heaven cultivator. He didn't deliberately hide his aura. Because of this, many people's worries about the invasion of the foreign races were dispelled. However, there were still many old monsters who were unhappy. We are having a meeting here, but you forced your way in. Although you are from the Eastern Heaven, you are not putting us in your eyes. Especially the two sages of the boundary river of the Taurus Palace. They were even more unhappy with the owner of this ray of green light. Heavenly Bull Skin Pattern. The Golden Balance Emperor's face sank. He was the first to stand out. He took out an old compass made of topaz and slightly activated it. In an instant, the power of the restrictions of the Taurus Palace increased by more than 10%. Every damage to the restrictions of the Taurus Palace required a lot of manpower and resources to repair. This mysterious person was rudely breaking in. Even if he was a friend who came to participate in the meeting, he still needed to be slightly punished. Otherwise, it would ruin the reputation of the Taurus Palace. As the Golden Balance Emperor continued to increase the power of the compass, hundreds and thousands of Heavenly Bull illusions appeared in the palace one by one. On the skin of the Heavenly Bull, there were strange patterns that looked like palm lines. The patterns gave off an ancient celestial might that made people feel like they couldn't be looked at directly. The illusions of the Heavenly Bull had cold eyes and collided with the ray of green light that broke in. They had the great aura of an ancient celestial emperor that could shatter the sky with his palm. Some old monsters who had a deeper understanding of the Taurus Palace were shocked. People say that the existence of the Taurus Palace is the remains of a pre-celestial high-grade magic treasure. Could it be true? According to the ancient books, when a certain ancient emperor obtained the Tao, the will of heaven turned into a sword and cut off half of his palm. The broken palm turned into the Heavenly Bull race. It was also said that the Heavenly Bull reverse pattern is like the palm of the Saint Defier. Could this bull be the legendary Heavenly Bull? The owner of the Azure Light was careless and was hit by several Heavenly Bulls. It felt like he had been struck by the palms of the ancient emperors. It was not a good feeling. He could not help but groan a few times and let out a long sigh with an aged voice. Rumor has it that old ancestor Taurus used his natal magic treasure to form the Taurus Palace to suppress the water race in the Realm River. Now that I've seen it, it's indeed extraordinary. It's really impossible to break into the Taurus Palace with just your physical body. Fellow Taoist Gene Balance, please stop. An old friend has come to help you guard the Realm River. This voice contained the vast pressure of a 9-tribulation immortal emperor. Most people were unfamiliar with this voice, but a few immortal emperors who had lived the longest remembered this voice. Emperor Chonghe was the first to show a surprised expression. He clearly recognized this voice. The Golden Balance Emperor was the second to recognize this voice. His eyes suddenly widened, and then he frowned. He put away the yellow jade compass and dispersed the illusions of the Heavenly Bulls. He also took the initiative to open the many restrictions in the Taurus Palace and let the green light enter. This way, the green light was no longer obstructed. It arrived in front of the ancient monsters and landed on the ground, revealing an old man in a green robe. The old man in a green robe had an ordinary appearance, but his aura was unusually fierce. He was undoubtedly a 9-tribulation immortal emperor. Because he had been hit by the Heavenly Bulls a few times, his chi and blood were still in turmoil. His face was red, but he wasn't injured. The old man's hair was tied up with a waist-length righteous scarf. In his hand was a magic treasure made of white jade that looked like a tower, and yet not a tower. His body was surrounded by unpredictable green auspicious clouds. Clear sky white jade tower. It's you. Didn't you die in the immortal emperor's 7 tribulations? Why are you still alive? I saw your life tablet shatter with my own eyes. The strongest demon in the eastern sky from 80 million years ago is still alive today. And he even has the cultivation of a 9-tribulation immortal emperor. Not only is he still alive, but he also came to the Realm River. With him here, the Realm River is in chaos. Wait! Didn't this old white demon say that he used his physical body to break into the Taurus Palace? He actually didn't use his famous magic treasure, the clear sky white jade tower? If he uses it, could it be that even the heavenly bull skin pattern, the strongest restriction of the Taurus palace, can't stop him? A few of the older immortal emperors were discussing the green-robed old man, who was called Old White Demon. Most of the ancient monsters here were unfamiliar with this person's name. After all, this Old White Demon was a person from 80 million years ago. How many people in the eastern sky could still remember him? At least, Ningfan had never heard of this person's name. However, he did not dare to underestimate this Old White Demon because his aura force was almost the same as the 7th slaying emperors. Among all the immortal emperors here, this person was the strongest. Humph! I didn't expect you to still be alive. Jin Hung snorted coldly. Humph! Old man, you haven't died yet. How can I die before you? Old White Demon snorted coldly at Jin Hung. The two old men were still glaring at each other. Suddenly, they burst into laughter at the same time. After that, tears flowed down their cheeks. It has been 80 million years. Do you still remember the grudges in the past? I can't remember. You're old. Immortal monarch Wuxia, by Yulo, has become an old man. You're old too. The jade-faced ox monarch Jin Hung is now just an old man. What are you doing here? To guard the border river for an old friend. Since you're here, I'm afraid the competition for the position of Vice Alliance leader will be even more intense. Jin Hung smiled bitterly. Competition? Who dares to compete with me? The position of the last Vice Alliance leader is mine. With me here, who dares to snatch it from me? With these 5 good-for-nothings? Old White Demon was still polite to Jin Hung, but he did not have any scruples towards others. His cold eyes swept across Lai Jun, Yuan Dan, Gui Hua, Qi Tuo and the 5 emperors at lightning speed. The 5 emperors were shaken by his aura force and took a few steps back before they could stabilize themselves. Each of them had an unpleasant expression on their faces. This Old White Demon is too rude. So what if he's the strongest devil in the eastern sky 80 million years ago? We're all emperors of the same level. Yet you call us good-for-nothings. Do you really think you can do whatever you want in the world, just because you have the cultivation of the 9 tribulations? The 5 emperors knew that they had no chance of winning against Old White Demon alone. Since Old White Demon wanted the position of Vice Alliance leader, they would not be able to compete with him. Everyone knew that they could not win against Old White Demon. However, as an immortal emperor, it was impossible for them to not retaliate after being humiliated like this. Emperors had their dignity. This dignity could not be trampled on by people of the same level as them. Brother White, you're talking big. Do you think you alone can? Qi Tuo Arch was interrupted by Old White Demon's sneer. Who's your brother White? Who do you think you are? Get lost. Old White Demon's roar caused Qi Tuo Arch, who was caught off guard, to spurt out blood. His expression was filled with shock and anger. His face turned red and his anger was like thunder. Before he could open his mouth to curse back, he heard Old White point at the 5 emperors in an arrogant manner. All of you come at me together. This old man is in a hurry. After I'm done with the Vice Alliance leader position, I have to go back to sleep. I haven't slept for 30,000 years, do you know that? Sleep. Sleep is a great luxury, do you know that? If I don't grasp this chance to sleep, this old man will have to wait another 10,000 years before I can sleep again. Do you know that? If I can't sleep, even immortals will go crazy. Do you know that? Chapter 11-13. He hasn't slept for 30,000 years? No wonder this old devil Bai is so hot-tempered and easily angered. He would insult Gui Hua and the other immortal emperors and ridicule them without reason. Even though Ning Fan was a cultivator who could stay awake for days or even months, he had never tried not to sleep for tens of thousands of years. Even an immortal would not be able to endure the torture of not sleeping for tens of thousands of years. A person's rationality and spirit would gradually collapse due to the lack of rest. Under such circumstances, it was no wonder that old Devil Bai's words and actions gave people a feeling of arrogance and madness. His overbearing personality was only a small part of the reason. The main reason was the lack of sleep for a long time. Even so, Ningfan still felt that old Devil Bai's current behavior was extremely inappropriate. If the battle between old Devil Bai and Gui Hua and the other immortal emperors was just friendly and friendly, no one would say anything. However, old Devil Bai first humiliated Gui Hua and the other immortal emperors, and then injured immortal Emperor Qi Tuo. Under such circumstances, if old Devil Bai and Gui Hua were to fight again, it would not matter who wins or loses. After that, there would certainly be irreparable cracks between the two sides. It was disadvantageous to the overall situation. If it's peaceful times, no one would care how you bully the weak or how you run amok in the Eastern Heaven. However, we cultivators should unite against a common enemy in front of us. How can we simply start a dispute? Ningfan frowned and remained silent for a while. In the end, he opened his mouth. Brothers stand on the wall and defend against their insults. His voice was not loud. However, he used some of his divine abilities to clearly transmit his voice into everyone's ears, causing the noisy battle arena to instantly become silent. Brothers stand on the wall and defend against their insults. This was an ancient immortal poem. It meant that no matter how many internal differences there were, they must unite against the external enemies when they are faced with external enemies. Which one of the 10,000 ancient monsters on the scene was not knowledgeable and knowledgeable? Many of them had heard of this ancient poem before and knew the profound meaning behind it. However, they did not expect that such profound and righteous words would come out from the mouth of a troublemaker like Ningfan. All of a sudden, the way they looked at Ningfan changed a little. Old Devil Bai had already rolled up his sleeves, planning to fight against Gui Hua and the others. Now that he heard Ningfan's words, he was stunned at first. Then his face turned red. He vaguely realized that he had gone a little overboard with his actions. He forcefully swallowed all the provocative and humiliating words in his mind at this moment. He did not continue to embarrass Gui Hua and the others. Gui Hua and the others were also prepared to fight old Devil Bai to save face. At this moment, after hearing Ningfan's words, all of them were either moved or had a plan in mind. Seeing that old monster White had stopped his attack, the 5 of them hesitated for a moment before withdrawing their abilities. However, their eyes were still filled with hostility when they looked at old monster White. On the battle arena, the battle that was originally on the verge of breaking out had temporarily calmed down because of Ningfan's words. Ningfan's frowning brows loosened up and eased up a little. Emperor Tsang smiled. As the leader of the alliance, he had originally planned to stop Old White Demon and the others from fighting. However, he did not expect that Ningfan would speak out to stop him. Such a way of doing things was inconsistent with Ningfan's usual arrogant and despotic style. Therefore, he could not help but think more highly of Ningfan. Fellow Taoist Ning's words have deeply resonated with me. Could it be that all of you have come to Taiyuan Ferry from thousands of li just to fight for power and show off your strength? The attitude of the foreign races in the border river is still unknown. A great war may break out at any time. The cultivators of our generation should work together as one. This is also the reason why this border river meeting was held this time. All of you are famous experts of your respective regions. Each of you has your own pride. When you do things, it is inevitable that there will be conflicts and conflicts. I just hope that all of you can think thrice before you act, and put the overall situation above everything else. If you can't even do this, this meeting is just an undeserved reputation. Why don't you just give up? The tragedy that happened 32 million years ago will happen again sooner or later. Speaking of the tragedy that happened 32 million years ago, the expressions of many old monsters changed and turned solemn. Old Devil Bai had gone missing for 80 million years. Thus, he did not have a deep feeling about the previous chaos of the foreign races. He just stood awkwardly at the center of the battle arena. His old face was alternating between green and red. He had already realized that his actions today were inappropriate. First, he barged into the Taurus Palace. Then, he looked down on and humiliated Gui Hua and the others. Although these people were indeed trash, he was indeed a little irritable. If he had a good rest, he would definitely not be so easily angered. Forget it, forget it. I came to the border river with good intentions to support my old friend. Unexpectedly, I offended a large number of people the moment I showed up. How could I still have the face to stay here and fight for the position of Deputy Alliance Master? Guard the border river. None of my business. I just came here to join in the fun because I miss my old friend. Forget it, forget it. I'll leave. I'll leave all right. Farewell. He was naturally arrogant. Even if he knew that he was wrong, he would not apologize to anyone. He only uttered these 2 words coldly and turned around to leave. He was actually planning to withdraw from the border river meeting. Everyone was shocked again. This time, even Gui Hua and the others had a slight change in expression. Old White Demon's bad temper was indeed embarrassing for everyone. But his strength could be considered top-notch, and he was above everyone else. If they let Old Devil White leave like this, there was no doubt that they would lose the only 9 Tribulations realm expert in this meeting. If they really started a war with the alien races, they would lose a top-notch expert. The danger they would face would be even greater. This was related to everyone's life and death. They had to be careful. Fellow Taoist, please wait. It's just a little dispute. Why do you have to withdraw from the meeting? Fellow Taoist, are you going to watch the alien races wreak havoc in the Eastern Heaven? The overall situation is the most important thing. Countless voices urged him to stay. Emperor Tsong and a few 8 Tribulation Immortal Emperors directly blocked Old Devil White's way and tried to persuade him. Immortal Emperor Lai Jun, who was humiliated by Old Devil White, also forced himself to let go of the grudge in his heart. He tried to persuade Old Devil White with a kind voice, which made Old Devil White's face even redder. Then, Yuan Dan's expression changed slightly. After thinking for a while, he also joined the ranks of persuading Old Devil White. Chi Tua, Dongling, Ghostflower, and other immortal emperors didn't say anything to persuade him to stay. However, they all looked reluctant. Obviously, they didn't want to lose such a powerful expert like Old Devil White. In the end, under the persuasion and flattery of all the old monsters, Old Devil White finally gave up his face and agreed to stay. Then, under the suggestion of Emperor Tsong and the other 4 Vice Alliance Masters, Old Devil White became the 5th Vice Alliance Master. No one objected to this. Even Ghostflower and the others, who were bullied by Old Devil White before, silently nodded and approved this proposal. As for the dispute between Old Devil White and Ghostflower, everyone chose to ignore it. After choosing the Vice Alliance Master, it was time to choose other positions. Old Devil White, who was yawning nonstop, was taken to sleep by the cultivators of the Taurus Palace. He had little interest in the nomination of the Lord of the Border River. Only a few people like Emperor Tsong and a few others could catch his attention. The others were all insignificant and not worth mentioning. After Old Devil White left, the atmosphere of the place gradually returned to its previous relaxed state. Of course, because the battle did not happen in the end, there were also a few people who regretted not being able to see Old Devil White's abilities. Considering that they would be able to see it in the future, there was no need for them to be in such a hurry. However, after the incident with Old Devil White, the hearts of the people became much more united. Even though the position of the Lord of the Border River was not comparable to the position of the Vice Alliance Master, it was still considered a high position with great authority. They could seek many benefits for their own people. If it wasn't for Old Devil White's incident, there would probably still be a competition for the position of the Lord of the Border River. However, this time, no one took the initiative to recommend themselves and ask for the position of the Lord of the Border River. Occasionally, some people would speak, but they were all nominating others. Most of their words were very pertinent. Ning Fan was not even interested in the position of the Vice Alliance Master, let alone the position of the Lord of the Border River. Someone nominated him for the position of the Lord of the Border River, but he politely declined. His reputation was too bad. If his position was too high, it would inevitably cause dissatisfaction from others. It would also be disadvantageous to the overall situation. He could still distinguish the severity of the situation. In the end, the list of the 8 Lord of the Border River was confirmed. They were Emperor Jin Hung, Emperor Lai Jun, Emperor Primal Pill, Madame Gui Hua, Emperor Chi Tua, Immortal Wang of Dongling, Thunder Immortal True Monarch and Sword Sovereign of Mount Hua. This time, Emperor Jin Hung still used the reason of being a welcoming envoy to decline the position. Unfortunately, he could not decline the position no matter what. In this aspect, he had far surpassed Ning Fan. Ning Fan's reputation was too bad. Among the 8 Lord of the Border River, the first 6 of them had 7th Tribulation Cultivation Base, while the last 2 only had 6th Tribulation Cultivation Base. Even though they were 6th Tribulation Cultivators, they were considered to be invincible among the 6th Tribulation Cultivators. Thunder Immortal True Monarch seemed to be extremely proficient in lightning element magic techniques. After he was elected as the Lord of the Border River, his Dao companion, Fairy Yu Hua, smiled. She felt happy for her husband. That Fairy Yu Hua was also a 6th Tribulation Immortal Emperor. However, she was the kind of immortal emperor who forcefully ascended to that level. Her foundation was weak, and she could only be considered as the weakest among the 6th Tribulation Immortal Emperors. It was said that this woman possessed a secret technique. With her assistance, Thunder Immortal True Monarch's combat power would increase by more than 1-fold. However, no one knew whether it was true or not. Sword Sovereign Mount Hua was one of the 3 sons of Jianyu. The 3 of them were senior and junior brothers. All of them were 6th Tribulation Immortal Emperors. Sword Sovereign Mount Hua had the highest cultivation base, followed by Yellow Mountain Sword Sovereign. As for Mount Shu Sword Sovereign, he had just broken through to the Immortal Emperor realm a million years ago. His cultivation base was the weakest among the 3 of them. The 3 of them were also proficient in joint attacks. They had once fought Great Emperor Tai Li, who had an 8th Tribulation cultivation base, to a draw. It was just that no one knew about it. After the Lord of the Border River was chosen, it was time for the deputy generals. Ning Fan still wanted to decline the position of the deputy general. However, this time he helplessly realized that he could not decline it. The remaining immortal emperors present had all been elected as the deputy generals. Even so, there were still 2 vacant positions. After a unanimous vote, Ning Fan and Luo Ho became the last 2 deputy generals. Luo Ho defeated Great Emperor Mo He with 3 punches, while Ning Fan had even killed an immortal emperor with his own hands. Both of them were infamous. No other immortal kings or immortal venerables could shake their transcendent positions. After the deputy generals, many other positions were elected. Eventually, all the old monsters present at the scene received their respective positions. After the meeting ended, each of the 10,000 years old monsters bid farewell and left the Taurus Palace. Ning Fan also planned to leave with the crowd. However, he was stopped by Great Emperor Chong He's voice transmission. "Little friend, don't be in such a hurry to leave." I know where the ancient chaos era is. Do you want to know?" Ning Fan's expression remained unchanged, but his heart was filled with astonishment. Everyone in the world did not know that Great Emperor Ancient Chaos Era was still alive. They only knew that he was already dead. They also did not know that he had quietly walked out of the Divine Tomb. Even Ning Fan and Xiang Bozi did not know where Great Emperor Ancient Chaos Era went after leaving the Divine Tomb. However, this old man Chong He seemed to know a lot of inside information. "I don't understand what you're talking about." Ning Fan's expression remained the same as usual. Little friend, you don't have to be suspicious. I'm not trying to test you. Instead, I'm certain about it. Little friend, you don't have to pretend in front of me. Others might not know that Ancient Chaos Era is still alive, but I know it like the back of my hand. Don't underestimate an immortal emperor who has lived since ancient times until today. Great Emperor Chong He said with a meaningful smile. Ning Fan frowned slightly. In the end, he decided to stay in the battle arena. He was not in a hurry to leave. He wanted to see what kind of tricks Great Emperor Chong He was playing. Ning Fan did not have a good impression of Great Emperor Chong He at all. On the Flamboyant Mountain, Great Emperor Chong He had schemed against him with a lightning bolt. In the Supreme Pill Sacred Region, Great Emperor Chong He's subordinate, the Flying Thunder Immortal King, also seemed to be very close to the dark race. There were some things that he was too lazy to get to the bottom of. However, it did not mean that he was a pushover. If this Great Emperor Chong He still wanted to scheme against him again, he did not mind giving him a hard time. He would not kill Great Emperor Chong He, but it was impossible for him to let this little rascal do whatever he wants. Not long after, all the ancient monsters left. Only Ningfan, Great Emperor Chonghe and his group remained in the battle arena. Behind Great Emperor Chonghe stood the 2 kings and 6 venerated beings of the flamboyant mountain. Each of them wore a silver bamboo hat, just like how they dressed in the past. The only difference was the way they looked at Ningfan. Each of their eyes was filled with respect. They did not dare to look at Ningfan for too long. They no longer had the superior attitude they had in the past. Everyone has left. Fellow Taoist, if you have something to say, feel free to speak your mind. Ningfan's expression was indifferent as he transmitted his voice to Great Emperor Chonghe. Even though everyone had left, Ningfan could still feel tens of spirit sense locking onto the battle arena. Clearly, they were paying attention to the matter between him and Great Emperor Chonghe. Under such circumstances, there were many things that he could not say directly. He could only transmit his voice. Little friend, don't be anxious. Fight with my subordinates first. After that, I will naturally answer your questions. You don't have to show them any mercy. Even if you accidentally kill them, it's because their skills are not as good as yours. I will never blame you. The cultivators of the Alliance will also not criticize you. After all, I did all of this voluntarily. Great Emperor Chonghe said those words openly. As soon as he said that, the faces of the 2 kings and 6 venerated beings behind him turned pale. One should know that Ningfan was in existence who could even kill an immortal emperor. He was no longer the same as before. Moreover, according to the rumors, he personally went to the Dark Race and fought against them. After that, he actually managed to escape unscathed among the 2 kings and 6 venerated beings of the Xiaoyao Mountain. Flying Thunder Immortal King had even entered the Supreme Pill Sacred Region and witnessed Ningfan's unparalleled strength when he attacked the Sacred Mountain. Could it be that their old ancestor has gone mad? Why did he ask them to fight Ningfan? Are they going to die? Could it be? Could it be? The experts of the Xiaoyao Mountain finally understood the reason. Each of them felt like dying ashes. When they looked at Great Emperor Chonghe, their eyes were filled with a hint of unwillingness. The 10,000 years old monsters who were secretly paying attention to this place were shocked. Everyone in the world knew that Ningfan had once barged into the Xiaoyao Mountain and fought against the experts of the mountain. Everyone in the world did not know the details. However, they vaguely knew that there were some unresolved grudges between Ningfan and Emperor Chonghe. No one expected that Great Emperor Chonghe would ask Ningfan to stay at this place and say such words. Moreover, this old man Chonghe actually hinted that Ningfan could kill his subordinates. Is he afraid of Ningfan's devil might and wants to use the lives of his subordinates to settle the karma between him and Ningfan? How ruthless. He can actually abandon the subordinates of his disciples as he pleases. What an ambitious and ruthless person. This old man Chonghe is indeed vicious. He has offended Ningfan in the past. That's why he sent his subordinates to Ningfan to be killed today. He wants to use the lives of his subordinates to settle the karma between them in the past. In the face of a great enemy, we should focus on the overall situation. I should stop this kind of private battle. However, if the grudge between Ningfan and Chonghe can be erased by sacrificing the lives of a few immortal kings and immortal venerables, it's also a good thing. From this point of view, there's no need to rush to stop them from settling their personal grudges. Let's wait and see first. It's just a pity for those immortal kings and immortal venerables of the Xiaoyao Mountain. They actually became the sacrificial pawns to please Ningfan. I wonder if the palace master of the Slaughter Palace who said, if brothers fight against each other, the outsiders will bully them, will kill these immortal venerables and immortal kings. I don't think he will hold back. After all, Great Emperor Chonghe did all of this willingly. The others won't be able to interfere and it won't hurt the harmony between them. Everyone did not know the details of the grudge between Ningfan and Great Emperor Chonghe. All of them thought that Great Emperor Chonghe had just offended Ningfan a little. Therefore, the lives of a few immortal venerables and immortal kings should be enough to erase his previous sins and repay the karma. However, Ningfan knew that the grudge between him and Great Emperor Chonghe was not something that could be erased with the lives of a few immortal venerables and immortal kings. Great Emperor Chong He had schemed against him with a trace of Yin lightning. That Yin lightning was none other than the Eastern Mountain divine lightning in the immemorial lightning cauldron. Obviously, Great Emperor Chong He had long planned to send the Flying Thunder Immortal King into the Supreme Pill Sacred Region to help the Dark Race unseal the immemorial lightning cauldron. Moreover, he had even schemed against Ning Fan from some aspects. If he did not notice the Yin lightning scheme that day and brought it into the Supreme Pill Sacred Region, Ning Fan was too lazy to find out what would have happened to him. Ning Fan was also too lazy to find out what kind of deal Great Emperor Chong He had with the Dark Race, and why he wanted the immemorial lightning cauldron. Moreover, Ning Fan was also too lazy to investigate the real reason why the immortal emperor of the Sound Thunder lineage destroyed the punishment ring. Because of what happened to the Sword Ancestor, Ning Fan did not have the time to investigate the Dark Race or the subordinates of Great Emperor Chong He and the others in the Supreme Pill Sacred Region. However, it did not mean that he was broad-minded and did not care about the schemes of these people. If he gets to the bottom of everything, Great Emperor Chong He would probably have to pay for some karma with his life. How could he just kill a few immortal venerables and immortal kings of the swaggering mountain? This old man Chong He is indeed vicious. However, he did not want to use the lives of a few subordinates to atone for his crimes. He is just testing the waters. Perhaps this person has come to me today to settle his karma. Or maybe it's not just that. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly cold. He glanced at Great Emperor Chong He. The baleful qi in his eyes was so strong that it could shake the past and present. However, Great Emperor Chong He's expression remained the same. Under the golden bamboo hat, his face was always wearing an enigmatic smile. After all, he was a figure of the ancient chaos era. He had even met immortal sovereign Zido before. He was the most senior immortal emperor among all the emperors of Eastern Heaven. He had seen too many great storms and waves. Ning Fan was indeed powerful, which made him fearful, and he did not want to provoke him too much. However, he was not a weakling either. His cultivation base might only be average, but his arrogance was such that he would not yield even a little bit even when facing the ancient chaos era. His opponent's aura force could not scare him at all. I've already said it. Little friend, don't be anxious. Fight with my subordinates first. I'll allow you to kill them. Of course, if little friend is not willing to take their lives, I'm also happy to see it happen. As soon as Great Emperor Chong He finished speaking, he ordered the 2 kings and the 6 venerated beings behind him to fight Ning Fan. Even though the 2 kings and the 6 venerated beings were afraid of Ning Fan, they seemed to be more afraid of their old ancestor. Even though they knew that Ning Fan might die if they fight him, they did not dare to disobey their old ancestor's order. They braced themselves and stepped forward. Each of them took out their weapons and magic treasures and surrounded Ning Fan at the center of the battle arena. Great Emperor Chong He smiled in satisfaction. His body floated and he temporarily flew out of the battle arena, leaving the place to Ning Fan and the others. Great Emperor Chong He was calculating in his heart. Ning Fan certainly would not use a supreme skill like the cross-shaped halo when facing a bunch of ants. In that case, according to his calculations, as long as his 8 subordinates cooperate well, they can at least survive for 12 breaths, 12, 10. What kind of joke is this? Great Emperor Chong He had just flown out of the battle arena. Before he could steady himself, the smile on his face stiffened and the corner of his mouth twitched. Just as he flew away in a flash, the expressions of the 8 immortal venerables and immortal kings turned blank. Then, they coughed out blood and fell to the ground, losing consciousness. Facing the attacks of the 2 kings and 6 venerated beings of the swaying mountain, Ning Fan did not even lift his hand. He did not even move half a step. Just a flash of demonic light from his left eye instantly ended the battle. The entire battle arena was filled with demonic qi. It was the ancient demonic qi that was left behind after Ning Fan used his illusory technique. All the old monsters who were paying attention to this place were greatly shocked. Defeating 8 immortal venerables and immortal kings with just a single gaze. Even the sovereigns of Eastern Heaven could not do this. After all, among the sovereigns of Eastern Heaven, there was no one who had Ning Fan's attainment in illusory techniques, perhaps only the Buddhist cultivators of the Western Heaven, and the demon emperors of the heavenly demon world could find someone with such attainment in illusory techniques. Great Emperor Chong he was naturally shocked. However, compared to the others, he had more considerations. He realized that even though his 8 subordinates were severely injured by Ning Fan's illusory technique, their lives were not in danger. At that moment, he was half happy and half worried. He was happy because Ning Fan did not kill his subordinates. It meant that there was still room for negotiation between them. The old grudges could really be resolved through discussion. What worried him was that even though Ning Fan did not kill his subordinates, he did injure them severely. This was a warning. This young man is trying to warn me that he knows all my schemes against him. He is telling me not to have any wishful thinking. If I really want to resolve the old grudges, I must show all my sincerity. After thinking about this, Great Emperor Chong he could no longer maintain the smile on his face. Just as he was about to gather some aura force and say something to Ning Fan, he heard Ning Fan speak first. I know you want to end the karma between us. However, these people were injured by me. It's not enough. So, don't tell me you still want to fight me. I know that your cross-shaped halos are powerful. However, in the tens of years after you were conferred the title of an emperor, I have already studied that ability of yours. Even if... Don't worry. I don't need the cross-shaped halos that you mentioned. Oh, if that's the case, I really want to know what gives you the confidence to fight against an ancient great emperor like me. In other words, he agreed to have a fight with Ning Fan. In fact, the reason why he let his subordinates fight Ning Fan first was to prepare for his own fight with Ning Fan. If Ning Fan's hostility towards him was not irresolvable, he would not mind fighting him without the cross-shaped halos. Great Emperor Chong he was well aware that in order to truly resolve the karma between them, it was not enough to just express his goodwill. He also needed to display his strength that would make the other party wary. As an ancient great emperor, it was naturally impossible for him to be as simple as he seemed on the surface. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to survive the calamity in the Purple Do immortal domain. He was naturally not willing to show his hidden trump cards in front of others. Even during the great chaos of the Sun Luo immortal domain in the past, he did not really reveal his trump cards. If that was not the case, why would he deliberately let Ning Fan stay in the battle arena? Iron Curtain open. Great Emperor Chong he seemed to be extremely familiar with the battle arena of the Taurus Palace. He raised his hand and made a hand seal. Immediately, the entire battle arena was enveloped by a layer of black iron curtain. Even the spirit sense of an immortal emperor could not penetrate the iron curtain and enter the battle arena. No one knew what kind of battle was going to take place inside the iron curtain. The battle arena of our Taurus Palace actually has such a function? A few immortal venerables of the Taurus Palace who were secretly observing the battle were shocked. Only Emperor Jin Hung and Emperor Niu Hung exchanged glances with each other. They could see the seriousness in each other's eyes. Junior brother, are you the one who taught Master's Iron Curtain summoning technique to this man? It's not me. It's not me either. Then it's the technique that Master taught you. It might also be the former Taurus Palace Lord from a long time ago. Rumor has it that Great Emperor Chong he is a true ancient great emperor. Most people don't believe it, but I'm afraid that it's true. Should we tear the Iron Curtain apart and see how old man Chong he and fellow Taoist Ning fight inside? Junior brother, you mustn't do that. Since that Chong he has summoned the Iron Curtain, there must be something that he doesn't want us to see. Even though he is an ancient great emperor, he is still afraid of the 7 tribulations and is stuck at the 6 tribulations. His abilities are more defensive than offensive. All he wants is to stay alive. Limited by his cultivation base and abilities, even if he is stronger than a 6th tribulation immortal emperor, he won't be too strong. Brother Ning should be fine, Emperor Jin Hung said with a frown. But Brother Ning said that he won't use his famous cross-shaped halos against old man Chong he. Emperor Niu Hung said worriedly. Let's wait and see first. Emperor Chong he is not a person who doesn't know the severity of the situation. He is here to settle the karma between him and Brother Ning. He certainly doesn't have the confidence to force Brother Ning to the path of death. If things get out of hand, We will tear the Iron Curtain apart and save Brother Ning. In my Taurus Palace, we won't allow an outsider to do as he pleases, even if he is an ancient great emperor. Behind the Iron Curtain, Ning Fan looked at Emperor Chonghe with a faint smile. It seems like Emperor Chonghe is trying to hide from others and display some unknown means and strength in order to intimidate me. Coincidentally, he also doesn't want the world to know how powerful his eternal true body is. His cross-shaped halos were invincible in terms of attack and killing power. His eternal true body was also not to be underestimated. It was a powerful body that was cultivated from the smelting cauldron and the divine smelting cauldron. During the tens of years when he was waiting for the Dark Race's revenge, he had bought a lot of useless treasures through the ancient country's trading formation, improving the defense of his physical body to the next level. Little friend, have you heard of my name? Eternal White Ape, Old Chonghe. I've heard a little about it. Those words are just some flattering words given by some fellow Taoists who are familiar with me. The word eternal is too broad and can't be taken seriously. However, the two words white ape are indeed true. Little friend, do you want to see my eternal true body? During the Dharma ending era, I have only shown my eternal true body to people 3 times. However, none of the 3 people managed to escape from my eternal true body. So do you think the 4th person to die under your true body will be me? I don't have the confidence to defeat your cross-shaped halos with my true body. However, if you don't use this technique, I don't think I will lose to you. Is that so? Little friend, it seems like you don't believe me. Fine. Seeing is believing. Next, I will show you the terror of my white ape true body. Don't worry. I won't hurt you too much. Of course, if you have the ability to hurt me without using the cross-shaped halos, you don't have to be merciful. I'm here to settle the karma between us. As long as you don't harm my life, I won't blame you no matter how you hurt me. In this way, you can understand this old man's sincerity. Are you sure? As long as I don't harm your life, I can hurt you as much as I want. A gentleman's words are never regretted. As soon as he finished speaking, Emperor Chonghe transformed into a giant white ape that was hundreds of meters tall and appeared in the Iron Curtain. The white ape's fur was extremely long. His body was surrounded by white auspicious clouds that covered half an acre of land. The physical body of the giant ape emitted a massive amount of blood chi, which was almost 10 times that of an ordinary immortal emperor. Perhaps this was Emperor Chonghe's greatest reliance in the Dharma ending era. My white ape true body has already achieved the earth-killing transformation. I can transform 4 times in total. Each time I transform, my blood chi will increase by 10 times. If I use my true body to its limit, my blood chi will be more than 40 times that of an ordinary immortal emperor. Little friend, what do you think of my true body? The white ape that Emperor Chonghe transformed into burst into laughter and said arrogantly. Ning Fan, however, remained expressionless. After witnessing Black Rope's abnormal blood chi, he looked at Chonghe again. Even though it was also very shocking, it was still within common sense. It was not unacceptable. Your true body is a white ape. Then, do you know what my true body is? Oh, little friend, you also have a true body? You have already formed your true body before attaining the immortal king realm. Little friend, you are indeed an extraordinary person. Although Emperor Chonghe said that Ning Fan's true body was impressive, deep down he did not put Ning Fan's eternal true body in his eyes at all. Even though there were only a few who could cultivate the eternal true body before the immortal king realm, it was definitely not rare. In ancient times, the number of people who could achieve this was as many as the hairs on a cow. It was not worth mentioning at all. Besides, as an ancient monster, everyone knew that after one's true body is forged, one must cultivate the earth-killing transformation, heavenly dipper transformation, and several other transformations in order to display the heaven-defying power of the true body. Ning Fan had just broken through to the immortal venerable realm not long ago. It would probably not be long before he could cultivate the eternal true body as well. Thus, it was impossible for his true body to reach the threshold of the earth-killing transformation. Thus, there was nothing to be afraid of at all. 300 breaths. I only need 300 breaths to take down this young man. and let him experience my power. Whether it's impressive or not, you'll know after you try. Golden light burst out from Ningfan's body. Within the golden light, he turned into a 100 tall giant who was holding a shield. 3 days later, the iron curtain opened. Even though Ningfan's robes were torn and tattered, there were not many injuries on his body. It was just that his chi was a little weak. He walked out of the battle arena with a slightly exhausted look, and praised Emperor Chong, who was standing beside him. You're indeed an ancient great emperor. You're really extraordinary. The karma between you and me ends here. Compared to the dark race and some people in the dark, you are 100 times better. At least you didn't bring shame to the Zido celestial cultivator's name. After all, he had gotten everything he wanted to know from Emperor Chongha. Where did the ancient chaos great emperor go? Where did the dark race go? This old thing actually knows everything. Chonghe's condition was countless times worse than Dza's. Not only was his chi weak, he looked like a bloody man who had just been fished out of a pool of blood. The way he looked at Ningfan was like he was looking at a monster. His expression was filled with fear and despair, just like a rooster that had just lost a battle. Thank you, little friend, for showing mercy. Chonghe expressed his gratitude, but his heart was filled with despair. Unwilling roars echoed in his heart over and over again. I can't even beat ancient chaos disciple. I can't even beat an outsider from the Lai Yuan sect. I've lived my life in vain. I've really lived my life in vain. The more he thought about it, the more he got himself into a dead end. He nearly fell into a state of madness on the spot. His behavior was abnormal. The 2 kings and 6 venerated beings of the flamboyant mountain tried to stop him, but they could not stop him. He had lost all his face. The expressions of the old monsters who had been secretly watching the battle changed drastically. This old man Chonghe has actually been beaten into a state of madness by Ningfan. What exactly did he experience in the past 3 days? Seeing this scene, the Yuan Dan and Maha Emperor's expressions changed, but they didn't say anything. Only their hearts felt heavy. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.